All right, let's see. Let's make sure this is actually running for everybody. Let me double check that it's not waiting for me to call something up, because we're actually not, I'm not even sure if we're going to be opening the game today. I think we're going to be just talking through the patch notes. That's what we're doing for the next hour and a half, I guess. So welcome back to We Play Games. I'm Walker, and here we are with Age of Wonders 4 and the Wolf update. This is going to be 35 pages of patch notes. I don't know if you guys have read all of this. I have now read, I think, all of this about 3 or 4 times, and I gotta tell you that there are parts of this that I cannot comprehend how this is gonna impact multiplayer. Some of these things are things that we've already tested. So if that's what, you're interested in, we'll be talking through that. This is gonna be more of the analysis side, so I'm probably not gonna focus a whole lot on bounties. We'll maybe read some of those things. There are going to be some things like the Pantheons that we'll briefly talk through, but more of this is going to be like the analysis of, what does this stuff matter? Does this matter? What about the new traits? What about the new tomes? All of that stuff. It's going to be more mechanically focused. But, if you have any questions in live chat down there, go ahead and throw them up. Hey Maya, how's it going? And we've got Derek here. We're talking about skeleton mages. Necromancy is of course going to be a big part of this. But the Wolf update came out just, last week? Last week was kind of a busy, hectic week for me, but we're here ready to go. So let's just start this off. As questions come in, we'll derail it, but in the meantime we're going to go through here and we'll look at stuff in the database. So the first new feature, of course, is going to be bounties. Bounties are something that I do not think are going to impact multiplayer in a meaningful way. Right now, if you want to do that with other people, you can just kind of do it in Discord, but it is something that is really impactful from a single player perspective because it does help you interact with the artificial intelligence of the game, and that's something that I think is really positive. I think that one of the things that we talk about on Discord in our little multiplayer community is the ability to build a spellbook for your auto battles to encourage your AI to do stuff. Anything you can do to encourage the AI to do things is really, really good, and this is a great tool. Now we have the way to influence our AI ally to be a proactive member of your alliance rather than just having their units wander around the board. And the combination of that and the fact that now free cities can actually upgrade their own ranks, they research tomes and actually generate good units, and for that matter in multiplayer, you are probably going to be required to do auto battles against those stacks, means that you can actually create some dangerous free city alliances and actual AI alliances. I think this is great. I'm probably not going to use them a lot, but that's not meant as a sign that I don't like this. I love this. I think this is a great tool. I'm really excited to see this. I hope that the developers keep doing things like this moving forward. The more things that we can do to influence the AI, the better, especially if it's something that's, easily understood with a good user interface. I'm all for it, but we're mostly going to be doing multiplayer and games where our goal is to just kill all of the AI because I think that's more fun. But, that's just me. That's meant as no offense. This is really cool. On the other side of things are the Pantheon expansion. I know that some people are super duper excited about the insane ascension traits, and some of these really are insane. If you haven't used the minion hub, I'll put a link here in the video description later, but you can find all of the ascension skills, and there are some ridiculous ascension skills in here, really absurd things. The seer, for instance, is +2 range on all abilities. You get this on a dragon, for instance. You got a stew cooking. This is an insanely dangerous ability. And some of the other ones are just more reasonable. Ascended Sorcerer, more reasonable. No, this is for somebody else. I like the challenge aspect of Age of Wonders 4, learning what sort of things work together to solve the challenges of what we're going to be doing with the AI. So we are going to be doing some single player stuff moving forward. I think we're probably going to commit to at least doing one single player stream a week. I'm not sure if I'm going to commit to more than that right now because I need to get into better physical shape. I've not taken care of myself physically for the last couple of months, and My weight demands more exercise, so I think one single player a week is something I can commit to. But that means that we're probably not going to be doing like a lot of ascension trait stuff, because most of this is like, how much do you want to grind out on one specific character? And I'm more interested in, like, you know, just exploring the new tools, because there are a lot of new tools. So let's start about the new Pantheon content. So the Crowmaster's Bow, this is a ridiculous item. The Crowmaster's Bow actually lets you start with an extra unit on the battlefield. And if you know what that does in regards to the way that experience points, and for that matter, the AI works, it's really good for you. So if you take the Crowmaster's Bow, you get a summon Grimbeak Crow as your starting hero skill. A Grimbeak Crow is one of those things that, like, you mostly don't want whenever you're casting summon animal, because it doesn't evolve, but if you just get one for free, these are really annoying for the enemy AI and auto-resolves to actually fight against, because A, they have this blind ability, but B, they also have the ability to just fly around. So the AI in auto-resolves will use this extra Grimbeak Crow to attract enemy attacks at the very beginning of the game. Therefore, like, immediately your starting clearing potential is a lot higher when you take the Crowmaster's Bow. Oh, hey Daedalus, how's it going, guys? But no, it doesn't cause morale penalties to you. It does provide morale to the enemy if they kill it, but not if it dies by, like, running out of time. So, like, this is one of the strongest new things that they added in terms of, like, a potential application. It does have some downsides where, like, if you take this on a Wizard King and you try to unequip it, because, like, generally you don't need a bow at the beginning of the game on your hero, you'd rather have a sword and a shield, and so it's like the skill is the thing that gives you the crow, not the bow itself. The bow is incidental. So on a champion, you can unequip the bow and immediately you have a sword and shield, and you can just, like, really rock it and put it to all the support units just wandering around the field. But if you're a Wizard King and you unequip it, then you turn into a Dragon Ball Z character and can just punch people. It's not good. So hopefully that gets fixed. But overall, this is very powerful, and even if you are playing a Wizard King, like, hey, even if you have one character with a bow and one character that doesn't have a bow, they will still interact in a way that's positive for you, right? Because you'll still have something else to absorb melee attraction, because you have the bird. So this is great new stuff. Also, really interesting new stuff is Druidic Terraformers. So Druidic Terraformers is one of these things that I think is probably meant to buff Feudal more than anything else. Yeah. So Feudal gets all of these little traits that are associated with their lord. It's like the Lord of Hero Skills. Here we go. The Lord of Hero Skills, like Lord of Production, Lord of Magic. All of these things apply actually an income bonus to the city where the hero is located. Normally, this is, like, not strong enough that you really want to be dedicating a whole lot of low levels out of your heroes in order to do this. That's one of the things that's been holding, like, Feudal back, because, like, you don't want to really go into big, high, let me grab some coffee real fast. So you don't really want to be going to, like, really big, high stability for the extra production bonuses. But here, Druidic Terraformers gives you, like, just so much extra stuff that it's really easy to get a lot of extra bonuses out of these flat bonuses using the percentages. Because usually percentages, you need, like, something flat to work off of. So, like, I think there's a pretty natural home there for Feudal. I'm not sure if that makes Feudal good. Like, there are some things that I want to test. I think Feudal could also be something that could productively use Perfectionist Artisans and Eagle Mounts instead of Dark. Like, we have that run going, and that's fun, but I do have to admit that, like, I don't think Dark benefits really at all from Perfect Artisans. I just started with a really good unit, that's all. Like, it's mostly meme nonsense. But this looks like it might be a genuine big enough bonus to specifically Feudal's economy that it might be worth pursuing. I don't know how to balance it out. Like, maybe you want Adept Settlers just so that you can get your fourth city down ASAP. But maybe you also need to prioritizing your hero economy, because you need to do that as well. Yeah, feudal needs some sort of boost, and they didn't do a whole lot in terms of like boosting it elsewhere, and this does look like it would work best on feudal. I just haven't played them yet, so that might be one of the like single player builds that we play moving forward, is testing out druidic terraformers on feudal, because that does sound interesting. Same with high also, like, because they just have gigantic numbers in like on their base stats on their cities, so percentages are good there too. But the not to go too into detail on this, like, I'm not sure actually if the elemental side is as big a deal. Same with the terraforming. When I first saw this, I thought it was going to be the elemental units that were important, but like, it really just doesn't matter. If you know where to plant your city core, just get 3 of these bonuses if you can swing it. The other stuff is incidental. This is the highlight. They put the most important stuff at the top of the description. Who would have guessed? Wow, Walker, you did it. Yeah, so Primal Good banner, Primal Evil banner. I don't think I've ever used those. Are those just like visual things? Let's see. I think those are just visual things in the crafting forge. Like, there are some things here that I've only interacted with a little bit on the forge side, because they're just more important, powerful things that you can make these days. Yeah, those all just look like mounts. So yeah, here we go. 8 new events for Pantheon Godder that can join your players as heroes. This is where, if you enable the little thing that like says your ascended heroes and rulers can show up, they'll show up. And this is I think cool. I've actually had 2 of the old rulers from my Pantheon appear in my campaigns that I've done, like, kind of for myself since the patch dropped, and I got a dragon ruler both times. It was kind of not working correctly, because the portrait, like for the dragon ruler, the extra one didn't show up in the auto resolve results a lot of the time. I don't know if that's a visual bug that other people have experienced or not. If you have, let me know so I can say it's definitely a bug and not just me. But it was fun. Like, having an extra dragon ruler around was pretty cool. Let's see, Pantheon event. Yes, it just increased showing. But here's like another really big thing, the hero recruitment. This is, I think, so there are a couple of things that are just huge in terms of the real impact on Age of Wonders 4 in these patch notes. I think Necromancy is like a second order gigantic change, whereas this is a first order gigantic change. This is huge. So now, it used to be that heroes, as Triumph themselves highlight right here, that when you increase your city, which was always going to make you a lot stronger, you also got an extra hero cap. So that meant that, like, those 2 levels, those 2 ways of making yourself more powerful kind of increased at the same time. So that was something that made it so that in previous patches, it was really, really easy to just start plowing Imperium into just city growth, and that was all that you really needed to do. It's still kind of all you need to do. Like, it's really, really powerful in terms of your knowledge economy to get extra cities going, because they can build more knowledge infrastructure. But now your hero recruitment isn't free. First, you can't recruit over your hero cap. That's not a soft cap, that's a hard cap now. That's enormous, because it means that you can't get an extra hero on turn 1, which was something that was like really popular for a meaningful part of the game. But you can't do that anymore. You literally are not allowed to oh, yo, what's up, Fadakin? Yeah, we're really just starting into it now. It's like 12:12 and we're only now talking about hero recruitment. We're gonna be here probably for an hour and a half. I want to talk about this, and it's a 35-page document, so we're gonna talk about it. But yeah, hero recruitment. This is a huge deal, because now what this means is that if you don't invest any Imperium, you're gonna have your ruler as your only hero between turns 1 and turns 11. That, because it goes like +10, then +15, then +20. That speed on like hero recruitment, if you've like played in multiplayer, is just way too slow. Oh, what's up, Yozik? Yeah, we're going through it. So now, if you're really focused on just getting your economy as big and as powerful as possible, I'm not even sure what the best strategy is anymore. I think it's contextual. I think that if you can find a very powerful hero early, like if you can find a free city who you can be friendly with, and therefore, you recruit a hero that is starting at level 3 as opposed to at level 1, you can find a free city maybe who has a minor transformation already on the books. That's a really powerful hero to pick up for a minor amount of gold. Then it makes more sense to invest Imperium. Because Imperium, you spend it at the rate of, it doesn't say anywhere on here, but it's 30 Imperium per turn that you're shaving off of your hero. And because it increases at that same like plus 10, plus 15, plus 20 scaling, that means that if you unlock your second hero on turn 9, then your next one is still at like turn 24 instead of being at turn 26. So like that discount on your turns is always there. But that means that like really you need to understand that the strength in your army at the very beginning of the game is going to be even more concentrated on your hero and on any other powerful starting units that you have, even more so than the way it is now. Because you just aren't guaranteed to have another hero on turn 4. In fact, you're basically guaranteed to not have another hero on turn 4. This also means that like you need to be on the lookout for other opportunities to get a really powerful hero. One of our cats is coming by, Loki, our spooky boy. So if you hear anybody ramming into the microphone, it's this scary black cat. He's very fearsome. He has like fangs that are very, very scary. But yeah, this means that you need to be prioritizing both the growth on your cities and the growth on your heroes. I think that your most natural pattern is probably still going to be get a city first, then get another hero, simply because there are going to be other ways to scale your hero without having it directly under your control. If you can find like the Tome of the Eternal Lord, or like you see, if you've watched my multiplayer games, you've seen me do this. There's a Silver Wonder, the one that looks sort of like a graveyard, that if you go into it, you can sacrifice one population and then you get a hero, and the hero starts at level 1, and so people are like, oh, this is bad. But then, like, if you actually recruit it once and you look at it, then you realize that, oh, this thing starts with literally 15 levels of items. Like, yes, it's level 1, but it's gonna behave sort of like a level 4 or level 5 hero in terms of combat ability versus like a naked hero. And so like you've functionally grown your second hero in the background without committing Imperium, whereas if you build the city, then you can like start building stuff in the city. So I think you mostly want to go for city first, then hero, but you do need to be aware that if you can't find a free city, then you need to find a hero first. It's complicated. So Yozik says, I wonder if it makes Chosen Destroyers actually more viable, since it would let you get knowledge without using Imperium and cities, so you can funnel most of it into your heroes. I suspect yes. We did actually play Chosen Destroyers like between Christmas and now with Winslaya, but I wasn't streaming it for whatever reason. I just I don't know. I wasn't feeling like putting in the effort at that point. That's my mea culpa. But we did play Chosen Destroyers with Barbarians and a Dragon Lord, and it was pretty fun, but it does sound like it would make Chosen Destroyers meaningfully less bad. The issues with Chosen Destroyers are fixed a lot by playing on just a smaller map these days. Perfectionist Artisans is still pretty awful, but Chosen Destroyers, I think, on a 4-player or smaller map is actually genuinely good. Let's see, if you get the hero, Daedalus says, if you get the hero this way from Ancient Wonders, how does that affect your hero cap? So your hero cap is like independent. It'll add the hero to your hero pool if you don't currently have hero cap to recruit that hero. It's typically going to be free as well, so that's like a big savings that you get on recruiting that hero. If 150 or 250 gold at the beginning of the game is actually a meaningful cost, and getting it fronted to you with a powerful hero is pretty good. And then Derek says, I like to send those heroes to the nearest neutral camp to die so you can yank the items and get a better hero. You can do that too, but I think mostly the value that you get out of that hero is not just the items, but also that it comes as a Whiteborn hero. Like, you don't have to put any work into making it Whiteborn, and so it's already going to have a good major transformation on the books in terms of keeping itself alive. And that's something that you do want to be aware of when it comes to, like, managing your heroes in regards to auto-resolve. It's okay if they die sometimes. Like, we're not gonna reload. We're not gonna, like, we might have a rule where we're allowed to manual, like, ruler versus ruler fights, just so that people can, like, see them. But, like, we're gonna auto-resolve, and we're gonna have some heroes die against the AI, and we're just gonna have to deal with it. And if the hero is better at keeping itself alive in auto-resolve situations, and lifesteal plus the, like, immunities and resistances that Undead gives that hero, make it just really combat effective. Like, even if you strip everything off of that hero, it's still going to be probably around a level 3 in terms of its strength. But again, it's going to evolve like faster, because it's going to only need 4 experience points to get to, like, pseudo level 4 in terms of strength. It doesn't get its signature skills early, but it's going to be pretty good. But yeah, this is huge. Heroes are really important in Age of Wonders 4, unsurprisingly. Like, if you have a unit type that has a million slots that you can put different forms of scaling on them, because that's how, you know, hero equipment works, then, like, yeah, those units are going to be pretty good, especially when you can get a lot of those items if you really want them. And you can get a lot of those items if you really want them. So yeah, this is, I think, is just a very, very positive thing. I know there's some people who are not thrilled with Leadership Clash. I've heard on the open beta that now it no longer applies to the ruler yourself, which I think is totally fine. I think that, honestly, the adding Imperium to hero recruitment is a great idea, and probably goes like 95% of the way to solving the hero spam problem all on its own. I think that if it turns out that Leadership Clash ends up not being important, then that's fine. I applaud it, because, like, I don't think it matters. I think Imperium is, like, almost the only resource that matters for, like, the first 10 turns, 15 turns, like, almost. And now you need to manage your heroes in regards to that, and your heroes were one of your most important things militarily. So, like, this is incredible. This is like probably 40% of the real volume of this patch right here. So next up, we have Overhaul Necromancy. So let's see, raise your hand in chat if you have played around with Necromancy. Like, if you've tried it on something, and then, you know, if you tried it and you had an experience with it, something that you appreciated, something that you tried and it didn't work, let me know. But I'll tell you that, like, I've played around with Necromancy now, and there are some changes that I thought were going to be a lot worse that ended up not really mattering, and then some that just, like, also didn't matter because they just are not particularly effective. So right now, what has changed? First, we've lowered the soul gain per kill on just, like, getting souls naturally. I think this is probably not great for Necromancy on the face, because it does make it a little bit harder to keep these rolling, but this is not being done in a vacuum, right? Like, now all of a sudden we have, it's gonna say it down here somewhere, Soulwell has moved down to the tier 1 tome in Tome of Necromancy. So this means that if you really need tons and tons and tons of extra souls, which, you know, you're gonna need tons of extra souls when you're playing as Necromancy, if you're being serious about it, yeah, I think new Necromancy is really fun. I think cards on the table, I don't think skeletons are very good. I think that that's the big complaint that I can lever against the, let's see, Skeleton mages, 40 HP. Skeleton archers, 40 HP. Skeleton warriors, your shield unit, your unit that's supposed to be protecting people, 55 HP. Skeleton polearm, 50 HP. So, yeah, in the new Necromancy, basically they changed the way Necromancy recruited units pretty meaningfully. Now Necromancy recruits units primarily by killing people in combat, and then at the end of combat you use all of your souls and all of the remains that you find on the battlefield to create new units. It used to be where you just, like, spent souls and draft in your cities to make stuff, and, like, that's fine, I guess. That's a different way to produce them, but like this definitely feels more thematic. Unfortunately, skeletons are not good. You should probably not be making them right now. I think that if these wanted to be playable, they really do need about 10 more hit points. Like, not only is this just not a lot of hit points to begin with, but they come with this massive penalty, like the giant fire and spirit weakness, which is part of the necromancy experience going back to old necromancy, where you just built those units and progressed from there. These are extremely fragile in auto resolves, to the point where you kind of cannot bring them if the opponent has any units that deal this type of damage on the other side. And that means that like if you're trying to use these guys as chaff and like have them help out your heroes when it comes to having your heroes walk around and get the most experience points and stuff, you're gonna randomly find battles where you're just fighting against like 3 magma spirits and a polearm, where if you had literally any other tier 1 shield unit, you would just like walk all over that army. But instead, like the battle starts with 2 of the magma spirits get 2 65% shots on like 1 unit, and then your entire army dies, and it's just like awful. It's not good. Like 40 feels fair for a free unit in one aspect, except that like -4 and -4 is a lot. Like I guess you could probably leave these the same, except that I think that this is not enough on the other side is the problem, Derek. I think 40 HP is part of the problem when it comes to tier 1s. Like these are too fragile. Heroes have 90 HP. I think it would not be insane for a baseline for like an archer to be 55, and then a skirmisher be 60, and then a polearm be 65, and a shield be 70. I think that would make the heroes still perform a lot better and still be stronger, while also allowing the heroes the combats to be more interesting at lower levels. Because the way it works right now is that these units are so fragile that when you have a PvP scenario, like a team fight between 2 people, people will kill tier 1s in like literally 1 turn, because these things just have zero staying power to them, and that's a big problem. Like they've fixed a little bit of it because now morale is scaled off of the tier of the unit being killed in comparison to the unit that's like observing it being killed. So it's complicated. Like there's definitely some math to go into it, but yes, Fatakine's got a great reason here. Also, there's a limit to the number of units per combat, so that means that generally speaking, you do not get a lot of value out of having a strong 36th unit. You need a strong 18th unit, and skeletons are not that. But that's okay. Like that's not important, because everything else about necromancy is insane. So what else do we have going on here? So when you're killing all these racial units, that's when you can recruit your skeletons. That's like part of the beginning of the problem when it comes to some of these, just utilizing them in practice, is that you have to have as part of creation that resource. Fortunately, managing these resources for the units that you do want to be making is not impossible, especially if you're playing with regenerating infestations, which we've been playing with regenerating on normal world threat, and it's played very, very well in our multiplayer groups. I would encourage people to play it, see how they feel, because with normal world threat and regenerating, the world still has like stuff for you to fight and kill other than the other empires. So if you don't want to like declare war on people to win, you don't have to, but if you do want to declare war on people to win, there's more stuff for you to fight first, so it's like everybody wins. But yeah, when killing non-racial units, you get, if you have the research. So in order to make bone horrors, which are our new like upgrade instead of the bone golems, you need the research on Tome of Souls, which is the tier 2. This is create bone horror. So bone horrors, very cheap when it comes to real application of these things, except for the issue where you do need the thing for you to fight a tier 3 or 4 non-racial unit, but you can find those very clearly through generating infestations, or if you're not playing with those, through Ancient Wonders. Those are a great way to find them. Same with seals. If you're playing with seals, then you're actually also sort of playing with a way to find the tier 4 for bone dragons, because those want tier 5s. Those you're more gonna find inside of like gold wonders and gold infestations. Golds are how you make bone dragon reanimation. So that means that like if you want to make this be part of your main core of your military, you need to have a map that's going to be like favorable to finding and fighting golds. If you're playing on a team like 2v2, you're probably not going to be fighting a whole lot of gold wonders. You might find one tree once, but if you're playing on like an 8-player free for all, then bone dragons sound like they'll be pretty sweet. Because like the bone horrors themselves, like, not to skip over these things, these are actually pretty nice units. You do get another unit, the corpse cage. Whenever it takes enough damage, you spit out a decaying zombie. The decaying zombie, of course, is like sort of incidental when it comes to manual combats versus other people, but you can get these things off of your tier 2 tome, and you probably want to go into Tome of Souls as your first tier 2 when you're playing with Necromancy. That's felt pretty good to me, because just you get so much value out of not the bone horror itself, but rather corrupt souls. So bone horrors are good, it's just that they're difficult to mass because of the real application cost here. But the corrupted souls, you do not have any other application cost other than just souls. So it's not that these things are actually like, oh, the corrupted soul is so powerful. It's that it's so spammable. This is sort of the unit that you can just get as a consistent backbone by just going into the Tome of Souls and picking this spell up and then casting it over and over again. And it has a really powerful bonus for your real economy too, in that you don't spend any mana on the actual casting of these units during that phase. So one of the things that you have to balance whenever you're playing Age of Wonders 4 is that when you hit your tier 2 tomes, that's when you start hitting tier 3 units. Tier 3 units, of course, are the strongest of the units that do not have an Imperium cost associated with them. So that means that you can kind of like accumulate as many of them as you want, and then get as much experience points onto them as you feel like you need, and then that makes you stronger basically throughout the entirety of the remainder of the game, because tier 3s are mostly never going to drop off when it comes to PvP. Like you have to be in an insanely long game for a tier 3 unit to stop being ever truly useful. But these guys, they can hit the ground, and if you've got them set up with, you know, some friends who can provide warding to help cover for this, and fortunately necromancers are now available in your tier 2, that's like something that I've gone back and forth on whether or not I feel like that was a buff or a downgrade for necromancers, but I feel like ultimately it's a buff in the sense that it enables using these on whiteborn heroes earlier, and that's just really strong. But even if you get past that and you can get to the point where you're using it on corrupted souls, the ability to use Raise Undead on your own units, on tier 3 units in combat, is enormous when it comes to manuals, and is something that actually still helps in auto-resolves. The AI is not like perfect when it comes to using Raise Undead. You will unfortunately still lose units from time to time that like the Necromancer could have saved, but the AI prioritized using Strengthened Undead instead for some reason, and then the combat was over and your unit died. That could probably be scripted, honestly, where like if at the end of the combat the Necromancer still has a Raise Undead available, and there's a dead undead in your party, bring it back. And that would actually probably be a meaningful buff to skeletons themselves, because that's one of the problems with necromancers. If you're trying to use the skeletons in combat, if the necromancer is reviving the skeleton, the necromancer isn't shooting themselves. And because they made that big upgrade to the way single unit attack, like single shot, single action attacks work, this is a real unit for like the first 40 turns in terms of real damage output. These things can definitely fight. And of course they have the perennial greatness of warding, just a great tool to keep your corrupted souls alive. And then the corrupted souls themselves can do some damage. I mean, the fact that they do mostly magical damage means that, like, at the very, very, very beginning when these guys hit the ground, they actually do a ton of damage in comparison to other tier 3s, because magical damage is going to be something that most people are not going to be like stacked on until the mid game. Then you start seeing resistance start to like really take off towards the very end of the game. But like at the beginning, most units, if they have anything, they have defense. And so this just does a bunch of extra damage, and then it has all these nice abilities and it gives them a lot of flexibility when just moving them around. Not that these are gonna like ooh and ah anyone, but they're very effective and very cheap, and that's like the best combination. But you do have Bone Dragons. Yeah, so we got Bone Dragons. Bone Dragons still have the issue of being a tier 4 mythic, but I think that people are overlooking the fact that tier 4 mythic means that you have here, in order to get to legend, you need 100 experience points, because it's a tier 4 rather than a tier 5, and then when you get to legend it gets killing momentum. So if you can keep your Bone Dragons alive, and you don't need to keep them alive quite as long with Necromancy as you do with other things, and get to the point where these things have killing momentum, and you can just give them 5 strengthened, then you have a monstrously powerful unit. And all that means is you just need to give that 5 strengthened. Like, yes, mythic units here are not getting a lot of unit enchantments. This is a genuine criticism. But that is not the be-all end-all when it comes to making units stronger. You get a lot of bonuses from like support skills on your heroes and your rulers and whatnot. That's a nice bonus. But also you can get Strengthen 5, you can get Fortune 3, you can add outrageous amounts of damage to this Bone Dragon, and then because it's a tier 4, it's going to get to killing momentum faster. And if you don't know how good killing momentum is, then you should play with it, because it's really stupid. It's like the best part of action economy, right? Like when an action economy game starts to have problems in regards to managing its own resources, it's when it's giving you like free low quality actions. But when you're getting killing momentum, you're getting free high quality actions, because it says as a prerequisite, in order to get that free action you have to have killed something, which means you can't be Shuckle. You have to have done something in the battle, Bone Dragon, in order to get this free action. And then the Bone Dragon says, well, I did do something, I used Poison Breath and killed 3 units. And then you go, okay, great, Bone Dragon. And then Bone Dragon says, thank you, and then tail swipes. So like, this is something where you need to be very, very, very proactive about using these units. The fact that you have a -4 fire weakness and a -4 spirit weakness on basically everything that you're going to be making out of your tomes, because this also applies to Whiteborn. Like if you haven't seen this, Whiteborn gives all of your units the undead unit type, which is the major race transformation on the tome, which gives you the Bone Dragons, of course. And the Bone Dragon here has the Undead ticket, which is the thing which is -4 spirit, -4 fire. This means that the more time that you make available to your opponents, the more they're going to be able to find a way to deal this type of damage, either through their tomes or just through smithing things on their hero forge, right? If they notice, hey, my opponent's playing undead, it's not that difficult to make a bunch of tier 4 weapons that have like undead killer and spirit or fire damage. But if you attack right away with a couple of Bone Dragons while your opponent is making their first one, they might get one of those weapons off of the rack before the Bone Dragons smash the walls down. So just be proactive. That's, I think, like the thing you need to start with when it comes to playing Necromancy. Don't waste your resources on the things that are not important, like skeletons. Save it for the things that are important, like corrupt souls, heroes, reanimating cities, necromancers themselves. There's so many things that you can do when it comes to spending your souls. Just don't waste them on skeletons yet. When they are less fragile, then I think they're worth testing. Because I do think that like the idea of having a shield in a dark Culture is like really interesting because you desperately want one in a team fight. Having no shield is very scary, but right now they're just too fragile. But fortunately, like, the good stuff doesn't start and stop with just the units. Like, the Necromancy skill here, Necrotize, is fantastic. I'm a really big fan of this spell. Used it a bunch against Winslaya in one of our games. I think that was the Sunday game. Maybe that was Saturday. I don't know. But this is also introducing a different status debuff here. The summons a decaying zombie under your control on unit death. So they added to the game the infect thing. Oh, it's not in here. What is it? It's something that you can also apply to your it's a death calling application. Oh, nope. Not able to. Am I misspelling it? It was Saturday, Maya. All right, good. I don't know why I'm. Oh, Necrotize. What am I misspelling it here? Or am I just searching in the wrong field? I might be searching in the wrong field. If I can't get it, it doesn't matter. This is a great tactical spell. So this is if you start with the Tome of Necromancy, then you start with Necrotize as your spell. There's some people who would probably prefer if you started with something like Soul Collection, or if you started with the ability to make skeletons. But I think honestly, it's infected. That's the thing. I don't know why it's not coming up in the database, but you know, it doesn't matter. We can talk about it anyway. We don't need the database for where we're going. Necrotize, great tactical spell. This is a fantastic way for you to cast like value into your stacks as Necromancy, because when you play with Necromancy, you will notice. Oh God, Walker. Thank you, music. That's classic skill issues. Yeah, so if you're playing around with Necrotize and Necromancy, you'll notice that like you actually have nothing else that you can spend your mana on for like the first 10 turns. There are some things that are worth researching, like Necrotic Magic is actually a very powerful ability, and I think if you're thinking seriously about using Battle Mages, then Necrotic Magic should be on your radar because of the way that it interacts with your AoE these days, because it's a single action. It actually applies Necrotic Magic and therefore the ability to apply Decay in usually a 90% bonus on your AoE for a lot of your battle mages. So this means that like if you're playing around with High and you're not sure if you want to play High and Necromancers, then there's no time like the present, baby. Like, this is actually a genuinely great time to play around with Awakeners and Necrotic Magic, because that's really gross. Like, if you apply Decaying to everybody on the enemy side, and you're able to just demolish them with the other tools in terms of damage that High has available to them, then you don't really need to, like, find damage elsewhere in your build. Like, you've kind of fixed it up against almost all opponents that are not immune, literally, to Decaying right here. On other people who are not playing as High, this is less impactful. It's still quite good in that it's going to be applying on the battle mages and the support heroes themselves, because it's going to give them the ability to do it at a 90% chance because it's a single action instead of the repeating. But this is a great spell, but like you only cast this once, and then there's no summons, so like you kind of can't spend mana with the Tome of Necromancy, which is, I think, a feature rather than being a bug. What it really means is that you can spend your mana on combat. This is something that some builds actively do not want to be doing. Like, if you've ever played around with Tome of Warding as your first tome, which I think is genuinely good. They're absolutely great uses for that, because the Phantasm Warrior is just a fantastically strong unit. It's basically a tier 2 unit in terms of its unit stats and abilities and stuff. Tome of Warding is a great starting tome, except that the AI has absolutely no idea how to use Mark of Invulnerability. Oh, yo, what's up, Blinsaya? How's it going, man? Yeah, like Tome of Invulnerability, Mark of Invulnerability, the AI will just like cast it, and you can just watch it in auto resolves. Like, it'll just cast it on random units that aren't under threat and just burn up mana for you. Yeah, no, this is live. Yeah, we're just talking through. We're like what, 45 minutes in, and we're only now talking about Necromancy. I said this is going to be an hour and a half. This is going to be 2 hours. I'm going to timestamp this later, so that way, like, if you want to skip around in the ramblings, you can. But no, we're just talking about the whole thing live. I think I played around with like basically everything in here, so we can like at least talk a little bit about everything. Although I haven't played with Druidic Transformer or Druidic Terraformer Feudal. That I want to play with. But I think basically everything else I've tried a little bit of. But yeah, Tome of Necromancy, this is, I think, actually a meaningfully better early tome, simply because the Necromancer is an incredibly important support unit. Oh, you just did a skirmish with Ninju? Oh, sick. So you aren't crashing in a skirmish mod anymore? If Winsley isn't crashing in skirmish mod anymore, then this is the biggest news in Age of Wonders 4 all week. That would be fantastic. The skirmish mod is this mod by Badok, who's like somebody we've played with before, which lets you just get immediately into fighting. Like pick some tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 units and just go fight each other and stuff. It's A+, and I would love for us to be able to do some more of that, but unfortunately we had been crashing whenever we would try to play it together. But yeah, Tome of Necromancy, between the combination of access to Soulwell, which if you have ways to build great, like if you have great builders, or if you have a lot of extra production through anything else in your strategy, like if you're playing with neutral high, for instance, cough cough, then you can definitely leverage the Soulwell really well here. Just being able to get extra souls to replenish, what you're missing out on, because remember, lowered soul gain per kill, you do need to do something to make sure that after you get out of the Tome of Necromancy and into the Tome of Souls, that you can start doing the stuff you really want to do to build your army, which is probably using your corrupt souls. Those guys, you're just going to make a lot of them because they're plentiful. If you can make some bone horrors, you should definitely do it, just because having a couple of them around does make auto resolves like really good for you, and they're pretty solid in terms of playing against PvPs. They do have some issues where if they get targeted by a haste and then they just run off into space on their own, they can die, but they're usually a little more durable than their defensive stats would tell you. And of course, we also have some other big upgrades for Necromancer. Soulbinders, now it goes from 10% to 20%. So this was one of those like incidental damage bonuses after you've applied the Soulbinded ability to the enemy unit that you're trying to farm down. You used to get only 10% extra damage. That's fine, right? That's like fighting 1 or whatever. But now it's 20%. 20% on heroes is a really big deal, especially because this is something where the heroes and your other guys with the enchantment soulbinders, your battle mages and your supports, they'll work together. So you don't want to have like too many things where you have just like flat bonuses that are only applying to one group of your units. There are of course a lot of enchantments that do that, and those are still very good. But strengthened, you want to assume that that's your best source of extra damage when it comes to like baseline, when it comes to Age of Wonders 4, because that applies to everything, and then anything else that applies to everything or like subsets of everything, the more important of the subsets of everything that they apply to, the better. And now, because you have to have support units and you kind of have to have heroes, the fact that they're working together on this 20% bonus is actually really good. So this is I think a big buff. So Winslow says, did Triumph say something about an open beta 1.1? Yeah, this is the original dev diary for Wolf Update, just like a week late. But no, the new 1.1 open beta patch notes are up. I haven't had a chance to read them yet, but it looks like it's mostly just like minor fixes, including the wolf no longer hits its own friends with the enfeebling howl, which is good, and there were some multiplayer stability things they think they fixed. But no, this is the main patch, not just the open beta. The open beta is like a lot smaller when it comes to the information within. All right, so after the Tome of Souls, we do of course important to note the Soul Collection here. Soul Collection is still really expensive. I tried playing around with it in one of our actually the first multiplayer that we did on the new patch with Primal, with the Dune Serpent, and with Great Builder, and one other thing, like, I was playing as champion, so I was like doing everything I could to maximize my gold collection, like, as much as humanly possible, and this thing was still chewing through my economy. Like, I think rather than increasing the income from 6 to 30, if they had reduced the cost from 30 to 15, then I think that this would be a much more reasonable spell. I think it's good. I think it's cool that it exists, and I think that there are definitely strategies that can make the money necessary to keep this going without slowing your construction down. But, like, I had multiple turns where the turn that I was building stuff, I could have either been building something different if I hadn't been running this, or been building in entirely different cities and entirely different combinations, and that can slow your growth down a lot. Like, even if you're building something, but it's like a suboptimal something, that's bad, and 30 gold is huge, even with all gold, even with an all gold build. It's still a lot. Alright, so Tome of Souls, what else we got here? The Restore Undead Army is cool, but it's still kind of like complicated in terms of using in PvP, because I don't like cheesing the idea of breaking off all of your undead units and like having them scramble all over the place so you can heal them, so then you can scramble them all back in. But maybe people are cool with that. I just feel like that's something that's probably vibes related. Like, in a non-PvP scenario and in a single player scenario, then obviously this is pretty solid, because it allows you to cheese like your undead units by moving them around and stuff. But keep in mind that strategic spells that heal you are a lot worse than strategic spells that deal damage. Like, a lot worse. So this one, it's mostly not the exciting stuff in Souls. The exciting stuff in Souls, this is your backbone thing. You've got your bone horrors, and then your soul binding. That's like the most important stuff. Tome of the Great Transformation is where you get Whiteborn. So Tome of the Great Transformation is like, I think if you're playing with undead, then you kind of have to be playing with Tome of the Great Transformation. Are you... Database? Why are you like this? Why are you like this? Database. Did I offend you? I must have offended the database. I will consult the Haru specs in your name. Alright, whatever. Tome of the Great Transformation. This is the thing that's going to give you access to Bone Dragon Reanimation, which, you know, as we talked about, this is just a... Yeah, that's just where we are. We're just going through tomes. Bone Dragon Reanimation gives you access to that tier 4 mythic unit, and therefore killing momentum. But more importantly, I think it gives you access to the Whiteborn ability and the Fetid Legion. So I do apologize that, like, my my chat is here kind of overlapping with all of this information. But it's just sort of like the way that these screens within screens go. Here we go. But yeah, Whiteborn gives all of your units the undead unit type and lifesteal. So what that really means is this thing fundamentally changes the dimension on which your race is going to fight in combat. Because this is not just going to be an army composed of bone dragons and of the other things that you've pieced together, right? This is going to be Whiteborn. Now all of a sudden all of your berserkers have undead, which means that yes, they now have the penalties of big minus penalties to spirit and to fire, but that's not like the be-all end-all for undead. You also get immunity to poisoned, bleeding, diseased. You get heartless, which means that now you have a smaller modifier to morale changes. You get a nice resistance to the frost and the blight. But then, of course, when you're dealing with something like a berserker or like a warbreed or whatever, it's a single unit, it's a single action hit. That means that it's going to get 10 HP off of that lifesteal effect, and then especially if you're playing on like a warbreed, then you're also getting the life regeneration from just natural regeneration. So like, as long as you're paying attention to the fact that your units, whenever you're playing with Whiteborn, are going to have massive problems with magical attacks and just like take Tome of Warding like a reasonable person. Please, somebody think of the undead monsters. Like, take Tome of Warding, protect them. But as long as you do that, then like these monsters will perform, because that Tome of the Great Transformation gives you these guys and Whiteborn and Fetid Legion, which as we kind of like skipped over there, but that's plus 10 HP on all these unit types. Like that's an enormous part of your army that is getting 10 extra hit points. And then the Weakening Aura, which gives you you're probably not going to apply Weakened in the mid to late game, especially in multiplayer. Most people now really are onto just using Strengthened because there's a lot of them, and Fortuned because there's a lot of them. But Weakening is still going to help you reduce the amount of Strengthened stats on your opponent's side, and that can be a big deal, right? If you go from plus 50% extra damage taken to plus 30% extra damage, then it's just as effective in terms of the Weakening Aura actually having worked, right? It doesn't matter, except for Dark, that the weakened status didn't actually go on to that enemy unit. You still save the HP. The biggest change in terms of Necromancy, I think, is not the change to being able to summon things on the board. It's just the change to Reapers. So Reapers, Freebird. Reaper. Reaper used to be like one of these meme units that was like kind of fun to bring because it had this cool ability, the Dark Rites. This is gonna give you some. Oh no, that's not it. Where's the soul? No, soul maintenance. Where's it's like I'm a leader of undead? Did they take that away? I mean, if they did take that away, it doesn't really matter because this thing hits like a goddamn dump truck. Like I wasn't even looking for any of the special abilities on this thing anymore. But it used to have this nice ability where if you had other undead in your stack, I think it was the way that Dark Rites used to work, but it's been reworked into something better that works better on this thing. It used to just like give you some like resistance on your undead, if I remember correctly, and then this is just like a random tier 5 mythic that dealt some damage, and it had this Finger of Death ability, which sometimes would work and then sometimes wouldn't work and would not do any damage, and then you were kind of bummed out about it. And the best part of this unit by a huge margin was the greater corpse consumption, which is genuinely good and was really good. So it was Dark Rites that just got changed into that. But like now like you don't even, this is not a lieutenant unit anymore. This is a murder house. This thing kills armies. This thing is a destructive monster. So look at this. It's going to do both physical and magical damage because you have that physical and the frost, but then it also has piercing and breaching. This means it ignores 50% of the target's defense and resistance. This means that it is impossible for the opponent to just like stack up defensive things against the Reaper ad infinitum. So they're great for chewing those things through. Is that it does still say it buffs its own undead. That's annoying because that does not describe what this unit does at all. This unit is now like one of the most destructive monstrosities in the universe, and it doesn't matter that it doesn't buff undead. It kills things. They're obviously, like, I'm being a little hyperbolic, but this is still a mythic unit, which of course means that it does get killing momentum. Because it is a tier 5, it means it gets killing momentum later on. But the combination of this melee strike, as well as the fact that Finger of Death now is like actually genuinely dangerous whenever it fails. It used to deal like 45 damage, except that because people just had a bunch of resistance, especially to frost damage towards the mid to end of the game, the Finger of Death, when it failed, really did like 18 damage, which is like okay, I guess, but not really that exciting. But this base 65% or 60% chance of dying, then turning into an undead unit, still made the Reapers good in the old patch, and now this thing ignores resistance entirely, which means that this thing is a Finger of Death. This is a really, really powerful pistol champion hero, sort of, that you have going on here, right? You put a pistol and sword on this thing. Here's the sword. The pistol is on a 4-turn cooldown, so don't shoot it a lot. But boy, does that thing do a lot of damage. And then, of course, greater corpse consumption is still here. You can use this multiple times in one combat with a Reaper. It's not going to have, like, 250 HP, but you might get this thing up to 200 HP with enough bonuses in the same army. And then, like, just everything else about it, because it's also ethereal now, too. It got the ethereal tag. So it's got all this thing brings all the boys to the yard. It's got the best milkshake. I don't know if it's actually going to end up being competitive in vanilla with things like Balors, because I think that, broadly speaking, we'll see how Necromancy actually ends up shaking out, but it still feels like it's probably like an A- in terms of Walker wants this to be good, but realistically it's probably more like a B+ strategy, just because this is a really big problem when it comes to fighting people long term. But like, if you find a way to make it aggressive and to get Reapers onto the board and progress and like proactively use them on people before they have the time to respond, these things will end the game. Yeah, the true death magic is a lot better. This is a lot better. It's still not good in the sense that it has problems where you can't use it in a zone of control, and it's still a 3 range action, whereas this thing you can use in zone of control, so no problem. But this does mean that if you can do anything to move units around, like if you're playing as the what's the name of the cold primal, the frozen mammoth, whatever, if you're playing with that and you have, you know, a reliable way to do hit and displace, then true death magic actually goes up a lot in terms of value, because throwing a Curse of the Reaper ability on something like a transmuter, or even just on a necromancer, is huge, because giving your necromancers the ability to do the Curse of the Reaper ability, which is another one of these, it's like, why are we talking about it, Walker? Why don't you just show the Reaper? It's here. Oh wait, it won't actually show you the ability? Oh, wait, I think if we search for a necromancer and we apply the enchantment, we'll get it. That'll be it. That's the ticket, everybody. It still doesn't show what it does. It essentially does the same thing as the normal Curse of the Reaper ability on the Reaper, except that you can't use it in zone of control. But like, just imagine that. Imagine your support units, somebody's closing in on trying to kill these things, and then you use Glacial Mammoths and they come in and push somebody out of the way, and then out of their backpack, your necromancers pull out shotguns and just do 45 non-resistance damage through to people. Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous ability. I think that doesn't do enough probably to make Tome of the Eternal Lord any better. I think this is probably still the worst tier 5 in that, like, in a PvP scenario, it's very easy for people to block you. Yeah, it still has the 45 points damage on failure. It's really, really good. It just has the zone of control problem. So like, you do need ways to protect them and give them opportunities to use it, whereas the Reapers, you just need to put them on the battlefield and have enough souls that you don't have to disband them. They are very expensive on the souls front. If you come in with 1,000 souls when you start summoning Reapers, you might feel like you don't have enough, depending on how big your map is. Oh, all right. So let's see, greater reanimation. This is cool. I mean, this is totally fine. But again, in PvP, that's mostly not going to be something that's going to go crazy, because people still respect like the power of Dark Ritual. That's just a fantastic ability when it comes to like a manual battle in PvP. The ability to suddenly have like 3 more units in the middle of a fight, from an action economy standpoint, is just terrifying. And so like, just you're mostly gonna have fewer and fewer corpses in PvP, whereas in single player you can probably get good value out of Eternal Lord. But yeah, in PvP, not good. And unfortunately, it will probably always remain the same. I'm not sure how you can fix that. Maybe if the ability for like the Tome of the Eternal Lord was better, but like the Tome of the Eternal Lord, it just brings your hero back from being dead. Which, like, okay, that's fine, I guess, but you could also have something where it does that and does something on the front side too, because this only pays me out when the hero gets killed in battle, and instead of doing that, if I just chose something like maybe Materium and chose Tome of the Creator and chose Ancient of Earth, so that my hero could have 20 extra hit points and 30 extra damage, or if I took like Tome of the Archmage and maximized magic, then my hero could get 40% extra critical hit chance, and then maybe I also took like the Golden Realm, and I have Gilded Magic, so my critical hits with magic inflict Gilded. Like, you have options here to build something where your hero like doesn't have to die before you get a payoff, and then in addition to dying, this has to like wait around for some turns, and then your opponents eat these things. Like, this one is meaningfully better, and I do think that these Banshees just keep getting better and better and better. Like, unfortunately, the biggest problem with them is that they like are non-functional in auto resolve, and that problem is gonna like hang around them until their AI gets fixed. I think that there is a fix in there where in Age of Wonders 3 they used to have the exact same problem with some of their faster units, like unicorns. Unicorns would run ahead of all of the enemy, or all of your own units. They would phase into the enemy army all on their own, unsupported. They would do an attack, and then the entire enemy army would just watch the unicorn and then kill it, and then everybody else would walk up. I think if they just did the same thing, which they did to fix the unicorn AI, which was just tell the unicorn to just defend on the first turn, and then just follow the rest of the rest of the army. If they did the same thing to Banshees, then I think these things would be great, because Banshees have fantastic stats now. They've just gotten buffed over and over and over again. Like, I look forward to the day where you can actually bring a Banshee into an auto-resolve and expect it to not die every single time, because everything else about this thing is just really obnoxious. The Wail of the Banshee is a fantastic tool to have available to you. Melee Mage means that you have the ability to apply magical damage on a small terrain like very, very quickly. It has that nice combination of Ethereal and Undead. Ethereal is a little worse in the new patch. It did lose the Spirit weakness. Like, it got +2 against Spirit weakness, and now it gets +2 in physical defense instead, which I think is a meaningful downgrade for the Undead themselves, because they kind of needed the Spirit resistance there against the Spirit problems here. But, you know, I think overall most Ethereal units are going to be stronger as a result of this, because +2 physical defense at the beginning of the game really is obnoxious. And just like all the rest of the tools here for Banshee are good, except that whenever you bring it into auto-resolve, like every single time, it just runs in front of your army, and then will phase off into the enemy army, and then wail, and then die. And then you're down, 150 mana or whatever it was that you were investing in that. But yeah, Necromancy, like, you don't need 3 stacks of support units, but like, you can play around with what kinds of support units you can bring, because if you have enough different ways to generate value on the board and like either not lose units or make it so you have extra units, and then like you can just keep the front of battle kind of like bogged down, then having like 5 support units in 18 seems pretty reasonable. I don't know if you'd ever want more like 6 or 7 or 8, because you really do hit diminishing returns even with Animists doing summoning and stuff, because the support units, they're just like every other ranged unit, right? If you have too many of them and it gets to the point where your turn with a ranged unit has to begin with you walking away from a melee unit so that you can shoot at it, that is a catastrophe in terms of action efficiency, because it gives the enemy basically a first strike hit on you to do some damage to reduce your models. It's not good. Don't do that. Don't end up where your front is Usal ranged units, and then your army is getting pulled apart. Because we died pretty badly to Winslaya with one of our dark builds over like the Christmas break. We randomed into Devious Watchers and Dark and Devotees of Good, and it was really fun. And then I had absolutely no front line, and it was pretty messy towards the end of combat. Quality of life updates. So there have been some nice quality of life updates. This one's huge. Add a dismantle province operation. I love this, because this allows you to, it still takes 3 turns, so like you do need to think about where you're dismantling parts of your city and letting things return to the earth. But this means that like, oh no, I clicked on the wrong tile and now I have to reload my save file, so that way I didn't take this forester, and now I have to wait for 14 turns to get a city, or I could build an outpost to steal a tile from my city. Like, you just click dismantle. Great quality of life upgrade. The new free city upgrades, this is what we're talking about. Like, the free cities they keep getting better and better and better. We will see. The Knights with Eagle Mounts, I would say I'm not surprised. Like, I didn't think too much about whether or not dark was the right thing to try eagle mounts on, because I wanted to play with dark just out of sadistic pleasure. I think that honestly, eagle mounts are probably better on feudal or on high. I would actually not be surprised to know that like high with perfectionist artisans and eagle mounts is like functional. I don't know if I would even try to say good, but if you get enough production to throw at your perfectionist artisan buildings, then like you can make some progress. But yeah, knights on eagle mounts sound like they would just be fantastic, because like they do so much damage, and unlike dark, regular knights don't really need support. Like they just kind of rumble. They have stats. And that's good. Let's see what else is going on in here. Added enchantment and transformation visual toggle. That's cute. I mean, like, a lot of these changes are changes that are not as impactful as dismantle. Let's see. The AI adjusted tome evaluation. All right, so this one, I don't know how I feel about this. I kind of like it when an AI goes in a lot of different directions and you can like have unpredictable outcomes when it comes to the what tomes you're gonna see out of your opponents. But I haven't noticed it, and so that means that it can't be offensive. So like I can't be mad about it. I felt like the enemies that I fought against were fun in the sense that like they researched things and they cast spells and they had units, and it was pretty cool. And that's like not bad. But I do like it when they can go off in interesting like what if directions, and if they make it too like this must follow this, then you go from having like a lot of different types of AI to having like 6 again, right? If you had to research the exact whatever your primary affinity was every single time, then there would only be 6 AI really, because that's the different schools of magic. So like let them run free. Like let them do research, but let them run free. Difficulty, I don't really care about very easy or easy. I'm not really gonna worry about that. Passive and low. I'm not even gonna read this. Art direction. All right, listen. Art direction in Age of Wonders 4 is like fantastic. I'm gonna grab another cup of coffee and I will be right back. Oh yeah, I imagine that Industrious, with Bastions and Pioneers, is actually a really great utilization of Eagle Mounts. Like the fact that moving on mountains with flying is a lot less painful means that like especially if you're playing on a map with just giant clumps of mountains, that Pioneers on Eagles are probably just busted. Because if you can get a big map with enough places for your Pioneers to go, then like the scaling on an Industrious economy is unparalleled. But you do need a big setup cost. All right, so art direction in Age of Wonders 4 is fantastic. Like I can't imagine that any of these changes are bad. The game is beautiful. Same with the audio. Like they keep toning down the bear roar over and over and over again. Bear roar has been in patches for like I don't know the last month and a half. Pretty funny stuff to me. All right, the combat. This is a big change. So we've kind of like already talked about some of these things, but now let's see. Yeah, certain bonuses given to attacks by unit enchantments and hero skills will now scale up if the attack is non-repeating, such as Magic Blast or Charge Strike, or for that matter, crossbows. So arbalists are even better now. But yeah, this combat log, this is another one of these things where there's just like enormous changes in a very small section of our dev diary here. Melee and charge encounters change. So now only polearm units and some hero items have charge resistance. So that means it's gone from large units and guys chosen. Heavy charge strike is gone from basically everything except for giants. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because it's existing in the same frame where the non-repeating attacks, such as Charge Strike, are getting stronger. I think in practice, what this really means is that the charge units are still very powerful, even with their ability to just like chew through polearms gone. It's just that polearms are a lot less anemic now, and I think that is a positive. I don't know if it means that like all of a sudden charge units are going to start really disappearing, because there are some other things that are kind of like hostile towards charge. Normally in any sort of like melee centric build, you need a way where you can ultimately outrange a big ranged blob with speed if you get to that point, because they'll be like missing from super far away. But because of something that was introduced in this patch, like that's kind of not an issue anymore, and so now melee has melee has a big issue at closing distances right now, and that makes heavy charge strike and melee charge strike a little worse. But like overall, these bonuses I think mean that this is now a little more balanced, with polearms being actually able to counter melee charge strikes a little more reasonably, while also still being soft against the things that would normally chew through polearms, like ranged things. If you want to keep your polearms alive, you need shield walls, or you need the warding defense mode. You need something that can give extra defensive abilities to your polearms. Let's see. Oh yes, they now check for fumbles before checking for critical hits. So this means that like Visions of Woe in a manual battle against another human actually can do stuff. Visions of Woe is very, very strong in auto resolves, like an incredibly powerful ability for you to have available to you. The only problem is that whenever you get to the actual manual combat against other players, up until now, it would check for the crits first, and then it would override it, so that way if you got the crit, the fumble chance didn't matter, even if you were guaranteed to fumble from Visions of Woe. But now, because they've switched the priority around, you can actually fumble first. So Visions of Woe, this is a big benefit for them, and this is a reasonable nerf for crits. It also checks separately for each attack, rather than for each one in a sequence. This is, I think, just fantastic. Like, I can't tell you how disappointing it was in the olden days to see the first either crit or fumble. Didn't matter, either one, because it meant that, like, all of the stress of, oh my god, did I get the crit, did I get the fumble? It doesn't matter, because it's going to be all the same. And that also was, like, kind of a meaningful penalty in a certain sense to, like, ranged units, because sometimes you just have to take a 45% shot, and, like, if you just get one of them as a graze, then you know that you get the damage through. But if you hit the miss chance on the first of the three outcomes, then you automatically hit it on all three of the outcomes, which is like not what you should expect if you were actually getting a truly random outcome, because you weren't getting a truly random outcome. And so like this is all upside. Like all these, I don't know why people sometimes get mad about the balance changes that are like obviously fixing bugs and stuff. I hope that nobody is genuinely getting mad at Triumph for making these changes, because these are great. These are all excellent changes. We'll see how this actually shakes up in terms of real meta, but all of this sounds really healthy. This is what we were talking about earlier. Higher tier units receive less morale gain or loss when a lower tier unit routs or dies. Currently 1 point less per tier difference. So this means that it's a lot harder to like just crush an 18 stack by killing the worst 4 units in that stack. Now you have to actually rumble with the big pieces first, and I think that's a really positive change. I think that's really good. Like, I would personally, as an insane person and a fan of Badox mod, and hoping that in the future we can come up with like a point system. I hope we can come up with a point system sort of like Total War, because I would love to see like ways to value some of the higher and lower tier units a little more with more granularity. But this affords us that a little bit, because now like it's not as terrifying to bring a random tier 2 into a combat, because if your opponent kills your support unit, then like it doesn't matter. Your mythics are not going to be so scared that they're going to start doing fumble attacks. When a combat summon times out, it no longer triggers any when a unit dies effects. Thank goodness, this was very silly. Like this is all upside in terms of bug changes. All right, so buffs and debuffs. So this is a really big nerf to Burning and Electrified. I'm not really sure why they are getting the nerf hammer here, but they are. So it used to be that Burning and Electrified dealt 8 damage per stack. This would be applied to just the like specific type of resistance for those things, like that specific damage channel, and so it was a really effective way of killing things. And because it stacked up 8 damage at a time, up to three times, you could get 24 damage for 3 stacks. It was pretty easy to use Burning and Electrified to just chew through low tier units. Maybe that was part of the problem, you know. That could have been a choice on Triumph's part, where they're like, this is not working correctly. 40 HP against 8 damage multiple times falls apart very quickly, which they're not wrong, but you fall apart very quickly. Now it's 4 damage up to 5 times. So instead of capping at 24, it caps at 20, and you have to stack it an additional 2 times to get to that lower number. I think that's mostly fine. I think that dots should be pretty good because like combat is pretty fast anyway, and so if you're gonna ask people to do their damage through a strategy that is weak to both time, or rather weak to short time with like aggressive strategies which are predominant, and of course it's gonna have some issues with people being able to clear these things with restores and whatnot, that they should be pretty strong, but they were pretty oppressive against lower tier units. Buff Steadfast can no longer be targeted by spells and abilities that will instantly kill a unit. This was great, because you used to be able to get through Steadfast, like through the zombie had an Inquisitor with Steadfast in a combat once, and we used the Insta-Death spell from the Reaper just for science, and we discovered that yes, it does in fact work, and now finally that is no longer the case, thank goodness. Spawn cannon evasion properly, not correctly, longer evasion against physical range and magic attacks. Alright, that's good. So now there is a new evasion clause that does apply to melee stuff, and it's not applying to everything, including not applying to the spawn cannon evasion property. There we go. Alright, so cultures. Most of these culture changes are pretty minor. The biggest of the culture change here, obviously, is Barbarian. Barbarian, they did not touch Ritual of Alacrity. So this is something where at some point I need to do like a playthrough with Barbarians. But like cards on the table, I think Barbarians is a much higher skill cap like faction than something like High and Industrious, and I'm just like, I'm not playing Barbarian on the level of Morgie yet. Like he understands this faction a lot better than I do. I can get good results out of it, but I can get much better results in terms of knowledge per turn with High and Industrious than I can with Barbarian. Whereas like there are definitely ways to abuse Ritual of Alacrity and get insanely high knowledge results with Barbarian itself, because you just use it to just keep your heroes powerful and growing and getting concentrated on experience points and taking fights, and just like you need to be proactive about taking fights into Ancient Wonders and taking, you know, risky fights. That's kind of like the big level up when it comes to Barbarians, is when you start like figuring out what sort of risky fights are worth taking, like literally right now. And doing Ritual of Alacrity to get yourself really high level is a way to help you take those risky fights. But yeah, Primal Strike is reworked. This is a big change for these cultures. This is the biggest other than all these like little SPI upgrades, because now this actually applies to ranged attacks. It used to be that like Barbarian was basically melee only. Like you could try to play around with all the different ranged pieces that you could make available to you, but because your extra damage was only applying to your first melee attack, you did ultimately need to build melee stuff as Barbarians. Whereas you can use Brutal Mark now on any critical hit that is going to be made from a base attack. So this means that you have some real options when it comes to these Primal Strike. I don't think you're going to be doing the like crit stacking towards gilding with a magic Barbarian hero, probably, but you do have the, you know, extra crit chance from a Barbarian hero themselves, so that might be a different like build strategy that you could put together for Barbarians, because you do want to do crits, because crits get you extra damage. So like, be aware you get 30% of your crits from Fortune, and then 20% of your crits from like morale. So you're up to plus 50% crits from like just participating in combat. So you don't need to take like literally every single thing that says plus critical hit chance in order for this barbarian primal strike ability to be worth getting good value out of. I think as long as you can get it on your heroes up to like 80% or above, then you should be pretty happy. And at 90% or above, then you should be thrilled. Like there is no bonus for getting to 140% crit chance. Be aware of that. Like that sort of math is self-destructive. But Song of the Ruthless no longer works on control loss immune. I haven't tried out Awakened Instincts. Has anyone tried out Awakened Instincts yet to see if you can do that on control loss immune? It didn't say anything about that in the patch notes that I could see. But if it can't be used on control loss immune, then that makes Awakened Instincts a lot more reasonable. But all of these SPIs now are massively reduced in their cost. So the basic cultural cost for SPIs was like a big tier 1. So the tier 1s, like off the tier 1 tomes, typically they come as either 60 gold and 130 production, or 100 gold and 250 production. The 100 gold, 250 production SPIs are obviously like a lot more expensive to build and a lot more painful when it comes to getting them down early, and therefore you kind of have to assume that they're a payoff for having built up a big economy rather than a way to build up a big economy. But the things that cost 60 gold and 130 production, on the other hand, are definitely cheap enough that you, after you've built your wizard tower, basic floor, your foundation, I think you can in your academy, then I think you can meaningfully consider picking up the SPIs that are 130 production, because they're so cheap, and they typically produce a lot in terms of real value for you. And now look, all the cultural ones are cheap, so that means that you can use them all actually early if you want. Obviously, some of them are better than others. 1 second. Coffee. Yes. Some of them are better than others. Like the food changes, we will talk about food changes in just a minute. Food changes mean that things that give you food are like a lot better, but you do still need to worry about like what the input costs are for the food. So like I'm still not a big fan of food, of like farm SPIs, for instance. But like Sunshine is crazy. This is insane. This was worth building. Even at 250 production, you could already get it down to 125 production instead if you just played with great builders. But now you can play with great builders in high and be getting your Sunshine for 65 production. That means that I guarantee you, if you're playing with champions and you're playing with like a neutral high, like the high hermits, that you can get to a point where your Sunshine can be built in one turn pretty darn fast, I think, with high. Yeah, like this is just great. I love SPI improvements. Of course, this also like means that Materium is just like across the board a little stronger, and so just keep an eye out for that. Let's see, Reavers. Okay, so Reavers, we're gonna like kind of need to talk about things as we like walk through and back things up. Reavers unfortunately have a couple of big problems. One, they just like don't start with enough war spoils to like meaningfully build an army of random units that you capture and auto resolves. I would love to have enough to get 2 tier 2 evolutionary units as a starting base supply, and then like manage it from there, because like you just don't start with enough stuff to like really hit the ground running, and that's what the game kind of requires you to do in order to get good value out of Reavers. If you do a lot of manual battles with Reavers, then you can get pretty good value, but you need to do a lot of manual battles with Reavers to get pretty good value. It's made more complicated by the fact that like the AI is just not very good at utilizing ranged attacks right now, and it's also like not prioritizing using marked first, which would make the ranged attack AI better, because I'm almost positive that one of the problems is that it's just having accuracy penalties, and then it's trying to solve those accuracy penalties by walking closer to the melee units instead of using things like marked. And if you can fix all that, then maybe you can make Reavers better in auto-resolve. But they're miserable in auto-resolve, and their economy is like nothing fancy. So like they're better than Feudal, probably, although as I said, it looks like the druidic terraformers might make feudal a lot more interesting, but like their base feudal, old school feudal, was definitely worse than Reavers, at least in an auto resolve world. But like other than that, Reavers was pretty bad. Fortunately, primals are pretty sweet whenever we get there. And this does not, unfortunately, look like it actually meaningfully upgrades Reavers. Hopefully we get a fix for that in the future when it comes to cultures. But like, in order for a culture to be good, it should perform well in auto resolves. And if it doesn't because the culture has problems, then buff the culture. And if it doesn't because the AI has problems, then like fix the AI. But like right now, on auto resolves, this faction's just not worth. It's not worth actively pursuing. Diplomacy. So let's see. Oh yeah, now the UI is a lot better when it comes to like getting good or evil. This is something that we talk about a little bit from time to time, but like getting good in Age of Wonders 4 is just enormously complicated and difficult. So like it's typically worse for that reason, just because the input costs are complicated. But now at least the UI is better at expressing that stuff. If you release heroes, then you get good. So like that is certainly a way to farm good. Find hostile free cities, let them attack you, capture their heroes, and send them back. That's certainly a way to farm good up. It's not what people would typically think of when it comes to behaving good in Age of Wonders 4, but it's I think the most reliable way to get there. But one of the other really big changes here is this reduced food requirement for population. So let's take a look at this. First, the city structure town hall reduced food income from 40 to 30. So this means that like the base income of your food in your capital city is going to be lower. But to compensate for that, so that way you're not like growing your city slower in this game, the amount of food that you need to grow to your next population, and this is population 1 to 2, 2 to 3. The counting here is a little weird, but it's growing out of your first population, not growing into your first population, because you start at population 1, now requires 90 food total instead of 120. Then 100 food instead of 133, 120 instead of 159, 150 instead of 198. Not only is this great from a user perspective, because this is plus 10, then plus 20, then plus 30, then plus 40, and then the pattern breaks down, and then it's plus 60, and then plus 90, and then plus 120. Yeah, when you release them, you do get their gear, which is nice. Like, you get everything except for the gold for selling their remains, which may or may not be part of your economy. Just kind of depends on what you're going for. But reduced food requirements for population means that now any sort of food bonus that you have from like a storehouse or from, a feudal governor with a food bonus on them, and the food bonus from druidic stuff in their location, or just the food bonuses for playing high, now you grow population utilizing food bonuses way faster. So this actual food growth, if you math it out, it takes about like 30 turns to grow up to population, I think it was population 7 was what I counted us up to. And that's fine, but that means that it's growing up to that with 10 fewer starting food than where you were in the old world. So if you get any extra food bonuses from like free stuff, you'll really feel it on this patch, and that's great for a lot of reasons, right? That's going to let you get extra boosts even faster, which part of the game is like, getting your boosts and using them whenever you can, but part of the game is also like understanding that if you need to get this academy down right now, then you just start building it without the boost, and then you just get the boost later. It doesn't refund you the gold, but it will still give you the production, which is like the most important part of that economy when it comes to, like scaling yourself up. And so being aware that if you can get higher populations faster, you're not going to be overspending in gold That is an important part of this calculation. It's also important to note, of course, that if you're trying to do a tier 3 rush and you're really just trying to get to Town Hall City 3, that it's going to be a lot faster to get there. I don't think that this is a strategy that people should be trying to pursue, because I think that you should try to be working on your knowledge. But if you really want to fight people with bastions, like just a wall of bastions on like turn 25 or whatever, then this change is actually really friendly for you. So city structures, as we mentioned, Town Hall is minus 10 food. Like, that's fine. That's, that's the way that the game goes whenever they drastically reduce the amount of food that you need. Workshop, reduced draft income from 10 to 5. We didn't talk about this in cultures, but they made it so that a lot of the cultural replacements are less like penalized. Now they only lose 2 in the resource that they are losing from instead of 5. But I do think that, like, broadly speaking, the minus aspect of those buildings is kind of like complicated in that not all of those resources are made the same, and so like losing one of them and then gaining another one isn't really the same in terms of balance. So maybe it's okay if they were minus different amounts, but if they were minus different amounts, you need to be really careful in terms of balancing. So like maybe you just don't minus them at all. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Minus 2 is a lot less than minus 5 is what it boils down to, and it makes Mystics less miserable in the early game. It's not obviously going to change the world when it comes to the speed of your production, but 3 extra production in your cities per turn is something. Let's see. Oh, this is good. Bolstering Matrix and Amplifier Lens now requires 2 of their respective affinities. Like, okay, great. Like, that should have been in the game from the beginning, and I'm happy it's there now. And they've added so that city structures that use the underground, water rather, use the underground lake provinces to unlock. That's fantastic. Same with Seafarers Guild. Seafarers Guild is one of these things that we basically have never used in multiplayer, because like you pretty much always just want Scholars Guilds. But I'm trying to think of scenarios where we might want a Seafarers Guild. Maybe we'll like do just a challenge run as I don't know, like I don't know. Maybe we'll do some kind of challenge run with like a total war character. We'll play the vampire coast, and we'll play with a Seafarers Guild. But like right now, you mostly just want to be getting Scholars Guilds. Seafarers Guilds, yes, you can get a lot of extra resources out of, even with the new seafaring upgrade. The ocean's a lot better, but I don't know if this makes sense. Advanced logistics, this is fantastic and always fantastic, but they've fixed it so that now you don't get extra speed in tactical combat. That's good. Adaptive research, this is Astral 2. Astral 2, in terms of value on the Empire tree, was really tough. Like the let's see, where is our Empire tree? There it is. So adaptive research. This used to be for 25 Imperium, research city structures cost minus 50% gold in production to build. That was ridiculous and frankly unhinged. Minus 25% is still very powerful, and this is still a very good reason to go into Astral. Also on that note, like I had a conversation with Endag. I was not reading this correctly. The cost of all other combat spells includes the cost in casting points, not just the cost in terms of like mana or souls or whatever. So surge spellcasting is actually like a very powerful tool when it comes to PvP, and I need to start making use of this more. But like early game Astral Empire tree has always been good, and this is not really nerfing it enough that it's not still good. It's just less absurd. Because it was bananas. You could build so many academies so fast. Astral Empire skill teleportation mastery, right? This is just a UI upgrade. This is a UI upgrade. Experienced sailors resource bonus now works on underground lakes. Yeah, this is so the experienced sailors Empire skill. Let's see. Let's pull that up. That is, where is that? Age of Wonders 4 database. Are you gonna make fun of me? experienced seafarers, but that's not the experienced sailors. Well, whatever. Whatever. If we can't find it in the database, we won't worry about it. But experienced seafarers, this remains good, and maybe that's what they're talking about, that it now works on underground lakes, because that would make sense. And it does have a resource bonus. Maybe that's just a typo in the patch notes. There's 35 pages of them. That is more than understandable. But yeah, broadly speaking, the Empire change, that's a nice little upgrade. Faction creations, most of the stuff is just like cool UI stuff. New form traits, desolate adaptation. So they now, we'll talk about it. Yeah, there it is. All of these earth shape spells now only cost 45 mana and casting points. That's still, I think, too much when it comes to really getting good value out of these. But it's, 45 is less than 60, and eventually it'll get to the point where it's low enough that it is worth casting. I don't know about Desolate adaptation itself, though, because Desolate is like a really, really rude land type. It's usually good at not populating forests, which means that you're usually good at not getting a forester for your cities, which means that it's more complicated to get your early infrastructure in said city, because early infrastructure typically requires at least one forester in order to get the boost. So like this is just a dangerous pick generally. But overall it could be useful. We'll find out. I've heard rumors that Triumph is going to be introducing a change where Ashen Wolf Cat, whatever, Ashen Cat Dog can get access to a forest early is the plan that I've heard, but they're not there yet. Pack Tactics grants Pack Hunter, so this is 10% per friendly damage adjacent to the target. This is not something that requires all of your units to clump together, but rather for them to clump together on an enemy unit. That's good because it means that like the requirements for you are a little less risky in terms of your need to expose AoE to your opponent, but it's also dangerous because it means that your opponent has a lot more flexibility in terms of who they present the most adjacencies on. A lot more control. So I don't know if that's worth 2 points. I think on an average unit, this is probably just going to deal like maybe plus 10% extra damage total on most fights. But if you have a lot of extra units, and especially if you have like summons that you can put in the back of enemies, like if you're playing with primals, for instance, and then you can get like free adjacencies that way, then that could be a really good way to utilize Pack Hunter. So that's definitely a thing to be on the lookout for, especially if you're playing with the Primal Wolf, because the Primal Wolf has that special ability just generically. All right, so Herbivore. Herbivore is one of these things where you're gonna have to watch a bunch of auto resolves and feel it out for yourself in terms of vibes. So what does this do? So this makes us at the beginning of combat, if your unit has like any damage on them at all, they are going to run to the closest tree or flora obstacle or like poisonous mushroom or whatever, and they're gonna eat it to regain like 3 HP and gain like a 1 stack of fortune or something like that. And that sounds pretty unimpactful, except that you realize that the 3 HP is the worst case scenario. In reality, what Herbivore does is in the first combat that you fight, you're going to have some units that are going to do some damage to each other, and then your shield unit is going to say, I have 42 HP left, and nobody's adjacent to me. I'm going to run over to that bush and eat something and gain 20 HP. Therefore, I'm not here to tank for this turn, so you might get damage onto your other units instead, but that's okay, because then your other units, all of a sudden, instead of starting the next fight at full HP, they're going to start their combat at like minus 15 HP. And guess what? They're going to be able to heal all of that off with the consume flora. So like in reality, the way Herbivore works is at the beginning of the game, most of the time, it's going to give all of your units the ability to heal a pretty meaningful amount all on their own on the very, very, very first turn. They'll also get an incidental buff. But the problem is that as the game scales, eventually you'll get to the point where you're having these big auto-resolves against like the AI, and your hero could be attacking for like 47 damage this turn and killing the unit that's right in front of him, but instead it's going to run away and like eat some flowers. And fortunately, it is a free action, so if it has the ability to still engage in combat, it will. But it is a little riskier in terms of its value long term. But yeah, Derek, I think it is up there with the other two good 2-pointers. I think the downsides that you can't use it in every single combat. Like it's a lot less useful in a siege than it is in a battle in a forest. But you'll still find Desolate has like plenty of flora for you to eat. So it usually does come in, and it is enormously impactful in like the first 20 to 25 turns of the game. And then it starts to slow down, but I think it is. I think it's worse than like tough and resistant, but only a little bit. And I think this is a really good thing to choose with. Mount Masters is complicated. All right, so Mount Masters you get for 2 points. All of your units become cavalry. First, this does not give your ruler a mount. All of the other cavalry also grant your ruler a mount, whether or not you choose a package that gives your ruler a mount, because the trait itself says gives your ruler access to a hero mount. But Mount Masters does not say that, and if you load it up with a faction where your ruler does not explicitly get a ruler mount, you will not get a ruler mount with Mount Masters. That makes this pick, I think, meaningfully worse, because like part of the value of this is that you can just, throw your ruler on an eagle and immediately have like a very, very silly, useful unit. Whereas with Mount Masters for 2 points, you don't even get a damn horse. You don't even get a damn horse. So 2 points, it's very, very cheap. That's great. I love inexpensive traits because it gives you, like lots of creativity and flexibility when it comes to including it in different forms. But like, it just doesn't do what it should do. It should give you a damn horse. And then it's also just like kind of choked in the sense that there aren't a lot of great tier like things that cost 3 that aren't also that aren't mounts. Like you can take this in Hideous Stench, you could take this in Resilient, I suppose. But like in terms of your faction traits, if you're looking at a 3-point thing, you're probably looking at a mount. At which point you're not taking Mount Masters. So if you're taking Mount Masters, are you taking a different 3-point or are you taking a 2 and a 1? Well, if you're taking a 2 and a 1, then what 1 point are you taking? Because if you're just taking Hardy, then like why are you even bothering to take Mount Masters? Because you know what does the same thing as Mount Masters plus Hardy except better? We now have Elephant Mounts. This is 15 hit points. Like so then the use case for Mount Masters there is complicated. You need, I think, probably the best use of this is something like Dawn Defenders on horses with Hideous Stench. That's probably your best bet whenever it comes to using this thing. Because that also gives you mounted Awakeners, and that sounds pretty reasonable. And Hideous Stench on high is actually pretty good. But I don't even know if it's worth three points. And this asks for 3. On the other side, you have Eagle Mounts. Eagle Mounts are like dangerous meme territory, but they are insanely good. I don't think they're competitive with Resistance and Tough. We'll see. I haven't really tried them on like something serious so far, but you get a lot of different forms of value out of Eagle Mounts because of like the value of flying. So let's see. Let's just load up a Bone Dragon again so that we can see what flying does. So flying, it says it has +2 vision range, can move in any terrain at a movement cost of 5, requires seafaring to traverse water hexes, can safely move past most other units and obstacles in combat. So what this really means is if you take Eagle Mounts, all of your optional cavalry at the beginning of the game are going to immediately have the flying tag, which includes +2 vision range, which means that you're basically starting with like the 1 point trait that gives you extra vision range, except even better because it's not +1 vision range, it's +2 vision range. And then you're also moving For your optional cavalry. Your optional cavalry are going to have 40 base movement speed, but they're also flying, which means that they can move 5 cost per hex. So all of a sudden, your optional cavalry move from moving 32, and then roughly like 5 or 6 tiles up to moving 8 tiles per turn. Oh, see you, Fidakeen. Yeah, this'll. Let's see, where are we? I don't know where we are. We got like so much to talk about. We got so much to talk about. Walker, this is gonna be 3 hours long. You said this was gonna be an hour and a half, you liar. I can't believe you would do this to me. Let's see. What are we talking about? Oh, we were talking about eagle mounts. Yeah, this is just really good in terms of generating value for you in the short term. The concern that I have is that in order to take this, you do have to take, this is 4 points. So you kind of get either elusive or hardy or maybe like Arctic adaptation on the backside. Like you're not getting a lot in terms of real value for your heroes long term because you don't get any of the resistance bonuses or anything like that. And so you're just getting a really sick mount for your hero and then a really sick mount for all of your racial units. Generally, racial units are eventually going to stop being like the backbone of your army in Age of Wonders 4. You're probably not going to have an army that's oops all eagle riding bastions, although that is potentially a good direction to go in for these guys. But if you are oops all eagle riding bastions, then that could be pretty scary. We'll just have to see how this actually plays around. I suspect that because it's 4 points that this is unplayable. But that's probably like my base case, and then we'll see from there because it does do a lot of really strong stuff. It's just really expensive. Form traits, we said here, these are like 45 instead of 60. That's probably not enough for this to make a big deal. Fabled Hunters going from 100% down to 75% is nice. That's great. I don't know if that's enough to make Fabled Hunters like meaningfully worse. I still think that it's like a good generic trait for you to start with on basically anybody, but it is more balanced, I think. Hermit Kingdom is a lot more balanced. Now it can't even border your own cities. That in combination from going from plus 30% knowledge to plus 15% knowledge means that Hermit Kingdoms has gone from like easy S++ rank down to a lot more questionable. I'll have to play around with it and see how it feels. I think it's probably still best on something like high, where the stability is most useful, and then obviously like least useful on something like dark, where the stability does nothing. Why would you take Perfectionist Artisans with Darkwalker? What were you trying to do? It doesn't do anything. Ruler updates. This is cool, I guess. This is all AI. Yeah, if you all have flying units with 40 speed, then you are going to have a massive advantage when it comes to your ability to outflank people. That I think people underestimate. There's another one of the games which I played with Winslaya. I was playing with the Chosen Destroyers with dragons. I was like bouncing back and forth over and over and fighting like one battle back to back after another, and having extra movement on the strategic map is huge, but it also gives you this extra movement on the combat map. So like Eagle Mounts is not just like an enormous buff when it comes to moving around on the strategic layer. This is one of the most impactful traits when it comes to the actual tactical combat too. And so getting into an early tactical fight with somebody might be advantageous. We'll have to see how it plays out. I suspect it's too expensive, but there are a lot of advantages that you can get from it. Let's see. Yeah, AI behaviors, blah blah blah. Free cities, right? So free cities, they get these new upgrade packages, which are going to give them like nice little bonuses in terms of their tomes. Really, really cool. And it does, of course, mean that these free cities, as it says here, they're also going to upgrade and make a lot more things available to you through Rally of the Lieges. I think the combination of that and your ability to direct free cities towards targets with Rally of Lieges means that we're so close. We're creating the nuclear physics device that's going to solve how do we make playing around with vassals fun and engaging in Age of Wonders 4. We're solving it. We're probably not there yet, because activating those free city attacks with Imperium is really expensive. But it's 1 point more for extra vision, and because of the way that it stacks in terms of your movement, it's more movement than all of the other like mount traits by a pretty meaningful amount. And then of course also if you are playing on an island map, then it lets you embark without missing a turn. Hello, Loki. Hello. Are you trying to get some food? Is that what's going on over here? Spooky boy, get out of here. All right. But yeah, these are really good upgrades for free cities. I think that we are gonna have another free for all where somebody is gonna try like Zombies strategy from earlier and try to use free cities, and it's gonna work, because you just need enough resources, and I think with enough resources and enough time, there's something going on here. Item Forge. So yes, now you can make dragon claws for dragon lords. This means that dragons are probably back on the menu. I mean, like, they never really went away, but they always had the issues where, like, the Wizard King would outscale them pretty dramatically in the mid to the late game because of the access to overchannel as well as extra world map and combat casting points, and so Dragon Lords had issues there. And then they introduced the Item Forge, and then dragons like had issues where like all of a sudden their tier 4 starting weapon was a lot less impressive because everybody had a tier 4 starting weapon. And now you can make really cool Dragon Claws. They are actually really fun. I don't know if this makes Dragon Lords like competitive with Wizard Kings or not, but the combination of their roar as well as their, just being a very effective combat unit, and the fact that now you can build weapons for them means that I want to try a Dragon Lord in one of our multiplayer games again. But the bigger thing is that change that they mentioned earlier about single attacks is not just for other units. It's also for heroes, including their funny weapons, including going from a 90% chance of something to a guaranteed. So this means that I think it's condemned. If you get a condemned heavy weapon or a condemned pistol, then those are guaranteed to apply, or condemned crossbow, guaranteed to apply condemned under those circumstances, which means that it's a lot easier to get extra value out of zeal, and it's a lot easier to get extra value out of the status resistances. And of course, if you start with a weapon that has access to a guaranteed condemned effect and -3 status resistance, that you're going to be playing around with a lot more space for your stacking out status resistance problems. We'll see how this actually plays in application. I suspect that this is unfortunately going to make the sword and pistol combination even more oppressive. It was already one of the best weapons in the game, and this means that the gun side on that is even stronger. And then of course they also added like a lot of extra abilities. The coolest things in here for me are the staff infusions, because these are showing up all over the place in our multiplayer. Now they have all of these like randomly procedurally generated weapons and items and stuff in the game, and you just see them like all over the place, and they're crazy, and I love them. And you can find staves of everything, including like staffs of like resurrection and whatnot. And then you can find Berserker Rage as a new miscellaneous trinket infusion, which makes the Berserker Rage pick as your ruler like a lot less useful. I don't know if I'd say mandatory, but a lot less useful. Displace and Replace as new shock infusions, gives you more abilities to manipulate combat. They also made it so that Lance actually deals less damage than Greatswords. That's like, I think, probably fine. Like, ultimately, I think the issue with the power weapons on foot was a lot more overstated. Because you just, like, make boots. Just make boots. Somebody asked about this in Reddit, but, like, they're boots that give you 48 speed. You can just wear those. That's okay. That's fine. And then you don't need a mount. Like, those are optional. And they make you cavalry, so that way you take damage from things that do extra damage to cav. So, like, this is... I understand why they did this, but, like, overall, not the biggest thing in the universe. These were pretty good on their own. And of course, if you're using a lance, you're like thematically not allowed to just ride around with 48 speed boots, even if it makes you nominally like not as weak to spears or whatever, because you just look too dumb. You're not allowed to do that. Inflict wet and burning now mutually exclusive. Sure, that makes sense. Let's see. Fearless to brave, negative morale by 50% instead of 100%. That's good. Paladin's winged helmet was pretty ridiculous. Unbreakable units in anything are pretty annoying. Oh, sure. There's some other cute little things that we need to talk about. The SPI UI is a lot better now. Whenever you go to build an SPI and you like mouse it over, it'll show you all these little green arrows popping out of it, showing you where your adjacencies are. But like by and large, if you're building an SPI, you're probably building it for the adjacency second. Like the main reason you're building it is because like you need that tile type in order to get the boost on your academy or whatever. You just need a research post, and you don't have a mana node nearby. Let's see if there's anything else that's important in here. Oh, targeter highlighting for sustained city spells. This one is really cool. This is a great UI upgrade. Like now, whenever you cast, amplified minds, and you're not sure which cities you've casted on or not, you don't have to mouse over each city. The center hex is just highlighted. That's a great UI upgrade. Let's see, that's a nice little upgrade in terms of linking things. So they say they're fixing a lot of out of sync things. Winsley and I can tell you that may be true, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But it looks like some more work is being done because I see mentions of things in the open beta, so that's good. Onboarding, yes. The onboarding is definitely better. I played through a little bit of the tutorial, and it does seem like they fixed it for Reaver. It was very silly that it was like requiring you to use your Whispering Stone, and you're like, you don't have a Whispering Stone. What are you supposed to do? Let's see. Pantheons. As I said, most of the stuff is like single player stuff that I don't really. I don't feel like I need to talk about. I think if you want to read those, you can. Tomes. So Astral, Tome of Scrying. That's okay. That's fine. Summoning well, this makes the summoning now 50% instead of free. That's good because now you can't just like summon the progenitor golem for free into little fights inside your territory. So invading you is no longer like impossible. Instead, there's a different tome that does that. But yeah, that's cool. I like that Tome of Summoning is in tier 2 now. I think that's a more appropriate place for it. And I like that Tome of Amplification is tier 3. That also feels more appropriate and less oppressive. Let's see. Tome of Teleportation. Astral Trade Relay. Yeah, this doesn't matter. Alright, listen. Astral Trade Relay. Let's go see how much this costs. Anyone have any guess for how much Astral Trade Relay costs in terms of production? Did you think that it cost 450 production for 17 gold? Do you know how much a market costs? A market costs 250 production for 15 gold, and you can get a boost on it from having two farms, and then it costs 30% less. So you need to start looking at buildings like this and ask yourself, if this building costs 450 production and I cannot get a boost on it, why would I build it? And then you just don't. Like, Tome of Teleportation is still very good. Like, even with the nerfs that came down for Phase Beasts, I still think this is, like, one of the better tier 3s. But this was not really a part of it. And you can buff the gold income as much as you want. If a building costs 450 production and there's no way to get a boost on it, it's usually not worth building in Age of Wonders 4. Like, the game can just be a lot faster than that. Tome of Astral Convergence. We did it, everybody. We talked about this in the tier video that came out like 6 months ago, and then I said I'm going to update it for every single tier list, and then just didn't. But now they've done it. Ethereal is attached to the Astral Attunement transformation. Thank God. This is really cool because Ethereal is a great unit type, and I love that we finally have like a really good Astral transformation. It's unfortunate that it's now competing with like another really powerful another Yeah, a very powerful astral major transformation in Naga transformation. So like there aren't going to be as many opportunities for this to shine, but it's still really cool, and I'm really happy that it's here. And the Astral Omen gaining a random positive status effect when a friendly spell is cast in combat is both good and bad, right? Because you have a limited number of stacks of like different buffs that you can get, but like broadly speaking, if you can keep getting the same types of stacks over and over again, turn after turn, then you can keep resetting the countdown timer on it, so then you can just like maintain strength in 5 for the entire combat. Whereas if you're doing different random status positive effects, you're going to get a lot more cool effects, but you're probably not going to be able to reset the timer as frequently or as consistently. But this is still good. Like, this is a great unit type to be applying to things. Cascading power is cute. Like, that's fine. Explosive Manifestation, Astral Siphon, or Astral Serpent. This is good. This is both tier 3 units. These are definitely a meaningful upgrade, and it counting as a damage spell as well as a summon spell in regards to the Empire tree and surge spell casting is actually a very nice thing. Can be cast in water, great. The Arcane Maelstrom, increasing the siege damage and becoming electrified. Electrified because, they reduce the amount of damage isn't as big a deal, but that's still cool. And then Astral Mirror, Mirror Mimic retains control loss immunity. That's good. Let's see. But yeah, Horde, this doesn't matter. This is cute. I like the extra rank. This is the biggest thing here in terms of like real changes. Scalds have lost haste. That's like the banner for chaos and the changes in it. I think that's probably good. I think ultimately haste was a little much on the Scalds, but I do think that like we just need more haste overall in the game, because haste is like a really powerful tool when it comes to punishing ranged units, and there are some really powerful ranged units in the game now. Storm callers are pretty messed up. The rest of the stuff is like good. I don't actually know how Inside Rebellion is going to work in terms of PvP. I want to see this, because the delayed activation from turn 1 to start of Defender's turn 2, it means if it doesn't tell either players which units are going to defect, is pretty dangerous and unpredictable for the defender, but also like hard to exploit for the attacker. And then increase mind control units from 2 to 3. Be aware that when your opponent kills their own unit that has been mind controlled, it is going to give you negative morale, and it's going to give them positive morale because it's a unit that is under your control, even though it was their unit to begin with. So that means that like mind controlling, if you accidentally hit like really low quality units with this, it could be pretty bad. This is overall like a nerf to chaos out here. Although I will say that this is nice. Demon Gate was basically impossibly expensive. Like if you were building Demon Gate, you were kind of just like flexing. There was no reason to be building this at 750 production, but 450 if you're building something that's going to let you build Chaos Eaters for Baylors. That's pretty nice. I don't know if they mentioned it here. Yes, there it is. Now Demonkin, sort of like how they changed the Astral major transformation, Demonkin now makes your units fiends in addition to everything else, which means that everybody can kind of go into the fight for power. Like, that's right, it goes into the square hole container. But like overall, I think that the Demonkin upgrade doesn't make Chaos Eaters like not useful, because you're still talking about like picking a tier 4 research before being able to do the fight for power. And it's a major transformation. This is a very, very expensive spell. It's not free to cast this. Whereas building some Chaos Eaters along the way, that's mostly free. Let's see. Oh, right, they got Purging Arrows here. This is pretty cool. The removing buffs is a little different from other disruption effects. A lot of the other things that we see that are pseudo disruption effects or literal disruptions are things that are going to turn enchantments off on your units or on the enemy units, whereas this is something that's actually actively removing buffs, which, just as we were talking about earlier, like having a big stack of strengthened that you can remove, that's pretty strong. But also removing regeneration, that's adding extra damage functionally. There's lots of ways for you to get good value out of purging arrows. And seeker arrows, which was the thing that gave you extra move or extra range, was powerful enough that having it on a tier 1 was a little messed up. I don't know. I don't actually know how I feel about Tome of Enchantment now. Like the fact that your golems no longer evolve into shield units to use the warding shields is actually a pretty meaningful downside. And on the upside, like Tome of Winds, this thing just keeps getting better and better and better. Like Zephyr archers keep going up and up and up in terms of their damage, and now there's seeker arrows there, and now the spell that lets them move extra spaces does let you move extra spaces on the land, in addition to 100% extra movement on sea, and you have access to like a reasonable tier 3 here. Like this is not as good as a Glade Runner, but it's not bad. And the tactical spell, which like moves people around and stuns them, is obnoxiously strong in the beginning of the game. So like this is a potentially interesting tome. The only downside, of course, is that like it doesn't give you frontline. That's actually a pretty meaningful downside. The fact that the Wind Ragers are fragile is pretty spooky. Let's see. Tome of the Dreadnought tuning kits. Stun duration from 1 to 2 turns. That is a big change. This means that you kind of, Abduction Cyclone is absurd in like a small team fight scenario. In like a low to the ground, people are bringing units that only have like 6 status resistance at the absolute max. That spell is bananas. I would say it's up there with like Infectious Insanity in terms of in really, really good value early that then drops off as units get more and more status resistance. But if you're fighting people early, Winds is, I think, really good. Or at least it looks like it can be really good. Tuning kits, this, I haven't actually played with the new Seeker arrows yet. But tuning kits, if you're going to be using this, because this now ignores status resistance and is 2 turns, you kind of absolutely need alchemy or something that's going to give you a lot of ways to, for free, remove status problems from your guys, because you don't want to be committing multiple actions in order to buff your hero, like your constructs, and get good value out of them. You want them to get value with the fewest action inputs as possible. SPIs, everything for the Tome of Golden Realm is cheaper. Look at this. Minus 300 production, minus 300 production, minus 300 production. That's great. That is great. I love it. The more of these things that we see, and there it is, there's another one. Minus 350 production. Frankly, this should be even further reduced in cost, but at least they did increase the food income a lot on the Temple of Fertility, and because they changed the way that food works, like that means that overall this is a gigantic upgrade for this building. I don't know if it's good enough to make it good, but it is a big upgrade for Tome of Fertility. I'm gonna get another coffee. Let's see here. All right, so Tome of the Cycles, they've done a lot of work to keep fixing up Tome of Cycles, and I think they're finally here. I haven't actually tried the new Druid of the Cycle, so I'm gonna need to come up with a situation where I want to pretty darn soon. But now they have 2 ways to actually utilize their Cycle's End, or restart the cycle. They have Cycle's End. It's like, the old school, I'm gonna use this to kill one of your enemy units that's damaged. But then we also have a visual glitch that drives people gross. Where is it? Sacrificial Blight. Yeah, we have Sacrificial Blight, which triggers light from death and then triggers restart the cycle. So now Druid of the Cycle can actually create its like resurrection / gigantic heal ability with either an offensive ability in Cycle's End or a pseudo defensive ability in Sacrificial Blight, where you sacrifice your own friendly unit in order to get things going. Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff here in the frame of Cycles. I think that broadly, Cycles is still in a weird space where like I don't know how many times I care about getting decaying like stacked up into outer space, because it's, although it's a very powerful ability, it's mostly about just like shredding enemy regeneration more than anything else. But like the restart the cycle going to 70 HP and having ways to trigger it on both enemy units as well as your own units means that this unit could actually be really good here, and it's the only tier 4 support unit. And support units, of course, they get defense mode warding, which combined with their really high natural defense and resistance means that these are very bulky. Like, there's a lot to like there. Tome of Paradise, I guess it's cheaper, but it's still not good. This is still a farm that costs 450 production. Yes, there it is. Combat spell, Awaken Instincts, no longer works on units that are control loss immune to prevent the use of these spells on units that cannot suffer from the Berserk status effect. Thank goodness. This was very silly. I think it's probably still too good, but I don't know, like we can have a conversation about it in terms of what we do with our weekends. Maybe it's worth testing, because Awaken Instincts is a fun spell. It was just really dumb whenever you use it on like an Angelized Tyrant Knight over and over and over again. Like now if it's actually giving you what it's supposed to be giving you, which is a lot of extra but lower efficiency actions, this could be more fair. All right, so Champion of the Faith makes you faithful. That's cool. That, whatever, extra income from 10 gold to 15 mana, that's fine. Tome of the Beacon is still just not good. Convert on Lightbringer could literally be 100%, and I don't think I would want a Lightbringer. They cost too much, they do not have enough HP, and then the fact that like they're mind controlling things means that any combat where they participate in could actually like cost you a lot in terms of experience points. If you have 4 units and your opponent has 3 units on like the map, then like you have to bring 4 units because you get less experience points otherwise, because it just like it creates a 4th fake unit for you. But if you bring those 4 and one of them's a Lightbringer, and the Lightbringer mind controls an enemy unit, then all of a sudden you're really only fighting 2 units in terms of experience points coming out of that fight. And if it just accidentally mind controls like the tier 2 support or whatever, then like a fight that might have leveled you up from level 1 to level 2 goes from, might have leveled you up to absolutely not going to level you up. These are just not good units. And they have 55 HP. This is ridiculous. Shrine of Smiting. Shrine of Smiting has taken the ban, the nerf bat. Shrine of Smiting. Oh, how we knew ya. Look at this. Once upon a time, Smiting Parablast, you could see it on Zombies stream when we were playing with the Undead Industrious from like 6 months ago or whatever. He had a Smiting Parablast that was doing like 150 damage, but now because this is going to be, stacking up to 10, at least the damage output here for Smiting Parablast blah, 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 is still high because of the breaching ability, but it has the Mage Lock problem. So anytime you have an attack with full action and cannot be used within an enemy zone of control, you do need to be aware that if your opponent is paying attention, it's going to be really hard for you to use this, like, basically ever. You do have the nice little thing here with Divine Vengeance inflicting blind automatically. This is a guaranteed effect rather than some of the other things which do check against stats resistance. This always works. But this is definitely copium. Like, if you're using this instead of this, you're doing way, way, way less damage. It's just that this is a lot harder to get off nowadays. Which, thank goodness, because when you could use that over and over again, this was something with killing momentum. If this was one action, you would use Smiting Parablast for like 150 damage, kill 1 unit, get killing momentum, you get the action back because it's a ranged unit. It can shoot again, do another 150 damage, kill another unit. Like, it was very dumb. It was very, very dumb. And now it looks like it's probably going to be a lot better. And as a consequence of this means that, like, big order strategies are probably going to be less impactful in a PvP. You know, we'll see. I think it really is going to depend on, like, what mod you're playing on, and then, like, a lot of the vanilla things break down. But in our vanilla groups, like, if you are playing around with undead, one of the biggest and scariest things that you used to be running up against was Shrines of Smiting. You might not see as many of those anymore. They are a lot worse. Tome of Supremacy, Eagle Rider is now Exemplar, but otherwise it's the same. That's just because, like, now we have Eagle Mounts. That's cool. Shadow, Cone of the Cold Dark, also got a production decrease. Alright, so units. Let's see. Fae. This is cool. I mean, this is nice. This is a good part of Mistlings. This is cool too. Inspiring Killer, I like it. Ethereal no longer has spirit resistance, defense bonus. Yep. Fiend unit no longer grants burning immunity, but now those ones have a burning immunity by default. That makes sense. I don't know how you're supposed to set a Phoenix on fire, so yep. Undead are now immune to diseased. That's good. There's a primal that has that. So nice that we have that here. Oh, they didn't. I was sure they were gonna put Tome of the Mists right there. Nope. Okay. Let's see. Fixes. Yeah, I mean most of these are good fixes. I don't think any of them are like pop off the page yet. Oh, what? Okay, well, I tell you what. I guess that's the entirety of this stuff. So, well, why don't we actually do, because this is already 2 hours and 15 minutes long. Why don't we do the DLC stuff in a different stream? Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. I don't know. But as just like a nice little thing, as a nice little sign off. Let's see. What was the strongest part of the DLC for everybody? Oh yeah, it does ignore 50% resist new on the shrine. That is a big upgrade for them. But what do you guys think? What was the strongest thing? Because people have been going crazy over the Mistlings, but I tell you, there's something not right about this Tome of Mists here. Where are you? There we go. All right, this spell right here, Lingering Mists, 60 mana, 60 casting points, Feywater Pond. That also does it, Misty. This is like some of the most broken stuff in the absolute universe when it comes to Age of Wonders 4. So as a sign off, let me load up a little preview of what we're going to be doing probably as our next single player campaign. Let's see. Let me just do let me just load Age of Wonders 4 now for 5 minutes at the very end of a stream while trying to keep cats together. But I'm gonna show you guys why the best part of Tome of Mists is not what you have heard. Mistlings are good. The Fey transformation is really cool. I think there's a lot of interesting things to be done whenever it comes to like the utilization of that space of evasion as a space. Because people think that it's like, oh no, there's no way to beat anybody if they have 60% melee evasion. But there's a lot of things that give you like automatic hits, including Stormbringers and whatnot. Those are really good. But you also have the automatic hits on Inquisitors. You have the automatic hits on your AoEs on your battle mages and whatnot. Yeah, there's some really cool things about the Primal Culture. So I guess, we build this as like a wolf patch update, which is mostly the free stuff, and that's why that's what was highlighted in the wolf patch itself. So maybe what we do with the next video, we'll actually just like talk through all the DLC. But let me make sure that the game is actually loading here. I see the Paradox Interactive loading. Fossil? Is that a fossil? That looks like a fossil. Anybody know the lore about this? Oh, come on, Paradox Interactive. My computer's not that old. Just because I built this thing for Stellaris and that game came out, before some of you were born, doesn't mean that I can't load this game. Don't give me that attitude. Now, I want you to think about what you've done. Not that hard. You don't have to think that hard. Like, just think enough about what you've done to load the thing so that way I can use it. Please. I have a family. Oh my god. Is it because I'm trying to open this at the same time as OBS is running? I usually do it in the other direction. Fey Embrace is great. Fey Embrace gives you the ability to interact with Misty Terrain without it being a problem, because it can be a problem otherwise. Triumph Studios. That's a cool bird. Bro, like, come on. This is... I really like the Necromancy stuff. I feel like I want to try the Naga stuff next. I did get to play with them here with this save file that I'm agonizingly trying to open for you, that I suppose I could have had to open... Wait a second. Did I not have the YouTube music playing the entire time? Is this going to be like a 2.5 hour long stream with no music? If this is a 2.5 hour stream with no music, then give me a thumbs up in the comments. Video paused. Continue watching. Well. So anyway, to frame this here with Age of Wonders 4 as we get into our save file very, very slowly, we've got a faction here with Industrious that I was just like playing around with. I just wanted to see like what we could do in Industrious on a smaller map where there was water, because generally I think barbarians are like one of the absolute strongest whenever things are like small, but let's see. Night Battles weapons demo. Boom. Here we go. So here we go. This is just a demonstration of what the strongest part of the Tome of the Mists is. So we got a game. We're playing against some major advantage AI out here with a major disadvantage, I think, is how he had this structured. And we're just playing against the AI with a nice little Industrious build that's trying to use all of the new tomes. Like, we're working into the Tome of Nagas, blah, blah, blah. But we got into a big war with one of these buttholes who's like trying to cross the river because we killed our neighbor, and now we're just like trying to take control of the seals and then end the game from there. But oh no, look, it's a giant stack of enemy monsters. Their entire army has crossed the ocean. Whatever are we gonna do? We only have this many troops nearby because like, I don't know, maybe like 10 turns ago, I had like a reinforcement stack that was coming over to here, and then there was like one of the free cities that I was at war with sent an army out to pillage my land, and the auto-resolve said low risk, so I turned mana off, and then they died. So like, our army is not enormous at this point in time. We have like one extra stack, and they've got a giant army. But don't worry. This is all cool, because what we're going to do is we're going to show off the absolute strongest part of the Tome of the Mists, because we're going to make this army disappear. But we're going to do that after this Marauder army kills our scout. All right, so all of a sudden we're going to make this army disappear. We've built our Misty Terrain. We have the Misty Terrain coming from one of our SPIs out here, Feywater Pond. So that adds the Misty Terrain to the entirety of this board. What this does in reality is now, instead of fighting the armies of the enemy, where we have to fight 3 stacks at a time, guess how many stacks at a time we have to fight? We only have to fight the stacks that can see us. So this means that we can actually like just go through and take out one little scout, and then sort of like night battles in like Total War. Here, these two can see us. So now we just go over here. Oh no, they can see us again. All right, well, we're just gonna go over here. And now they can't see us, but, oh, look at that. Our friends can see us. So instead of bringing in just 5 units to fight against these 5 units, why don't we bring in, like, I don't know, like this army and that army. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then we have 16 units against 5 units. All right, that's fair. So the way that this works is it'll only pull in the unit stacks that can actually see whoever is threatening them. So if you pull your units back and forth like this and you see like who can actually see you and who can't actually see you, you can just take... we could honestly be fighting against like 30 stacks here, because we're fighting them just like a couple at a time. And we can even... like, look, we pulled the one dragon back, and now we're doing this, and now we're doing this. Like, yeah, mistlings are cool, but I want you to know that mistlings are not the best part of the Tome of Mists. It's not even close. It's like, mistlings are good. These are, like, solid B+ units. This Misty effect is the strongest thing in the game, I think, probably by an enormous margin. Because look, you can have 18 units fighting against 6 over and over and over again. Like, this is gonna, if you look at this in the combat logs at the end of the game after I beat this, then you see like I actually wiped their entire army out 2 or 3 times over the course of the next 20 turns before this game ended, without losing any units on auto-resolve, very easily, without magic, by just fighting them in Misty terrain. It's really good. That's what the Tome of Mists is really about. Alright, well, I think that's it for today. Tomorrow I'm gonna see how things are in terms of timing, but I'm gonna intend to start a single-player campaign where we're going to actually be playing a build, maybe it's literally exactly this build, in the near to immediate future, just to show off Misty stuff, like actually as a big part of the strategy rather than just this, because this is very silly and I appreciate it, but Mists does do other cool stuff. And for that matter, later on in the game, you know, when you get into Stormbringers, those are also just like ridiculously good units. But in the for the meantime, that's Walker. All right, take care, everybody.